Hello, everyone. It's Will with Civilian Principles. Before the start of the podcast, I just kind of wanted to say a few things. One, if you could go ahead and like and subscribe, really helps just push information out there, and it makes the video a little more suggestible to people that might need to learn. Two, what a better time to drop this than the day before Prime Day. So, if you listen to this or the long range pack video from last week, go ahead, get some ideas, and maybe buy some stuff that was in that Amazon cart, or just prepare for the next time you can afford it. And then the last thing is Task Force Doomer just dropped their Wasteland drop. All new patches, all new stickers, shirts, hats. So go over to Task Force Doomer, whether it's on Instagram or if you just look up Pine Street Apparel on the shop app. You can go over there and see what good merch they have. All right, everyone, I hope you enjoy. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Civilian Principles podcast. My name is Will, and we have had quite a crazy day today. I'm joined with three awesome guests. Going down the line, the first one is Coyote.
What's up, Coyote? My dumbass thinks I'm an ODST.
All right. The next one is Outrunner.
Hey, guys. Outrunner. I'm an Army paratrooper veteran, and thanks for having me on.
No, thank you, and thank you, Recruiter. And my co-host is the artist who does everything great for TFD.
Yeah, you kind of cut me off there. Yeah, I'm the artist for Task Force Doomer. I'm a civilian, and that is why I contribute to the podcast.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks, everyone in here. Oh, what do you want to say, Coyote?
No, I was gonna say rehash of mine. Yeah, Army grunt, because I'm a dumbass. Whatever.
I think they picked that up at your first time you introduced yourself. So
I didn't say it the first time. Just making sure it's out there.
All right.
So to kind of talk about what's going on, right, and why we think every civilian should be prepared for what a lot of us feel like is the inevitable. Former President Donald Trump had an attempt on his life today. And that kind of shook everything up for everyone across the country. It seems like people who really didn't care about who they're voting for or if they're voting for at all are starting to get curious. We'll discuss this for a little bit here, and then we'll start moving into the topic of the video for this week, which was a long range pack. But artist, if you want to start kind of how you feel about how today went, and then we can open it up to the floor after that.
Yeah, like it's like it's TFG, man. It just keeps getting worse. One thing I really strongly noticed today, I was obviously concerned. The escalation of violence is very significant today. But my biggest concern is that average people who don't hold, because a lot of the time it's right-wing people are the ones who are kind of oh shit, things are fucked, whatever. The amount of average people in my personal life who became very concerned over what happened today is what kind of set me off on things are getting worse. That's obvious to me, but it's concerning that to them that's becoming obvious. And it's not good.
And before we open it up to everyone, one thing we want to say to anyone that's listening, we're not going to go down the rabbit hole on this podcast, right? There's still a lot of information that's coming out. We kind of want to collect ourselves before we start making assumptions or talking way more in depth about it, just because we're not trying to look like fools. And also we're not trying to spread the wrong thing to you guys at this time. Again, this happened just 6 hours ago, maybe less than that. So that might be covered in another podcast, but I'll open it up to how you guys are feeling about things.
I'll just say real quick, keep it short, simple. Piggybacking off artist a bit, biggest concern with it is just people. Yes, more people are paying attention to it and they're starting to freak out about it. I'll say on my part, I mentioned to everyone else here already, but it's people's reactions to things like this. We've seen it before. People go overboard with things and shit gets crazy fast.
Outrunner, you got anything?
Yeah, I think the two gentlemen before me, they kind of reiterated just about everything that could be said. As of recording this event happened about 6 hours ago. and we're still gathering information. We still don't know who was involved, who was behind it, what the actual names of the perpetrators were. There's a lot of fog of war, and over the next coming days, there's going to be a lot of different takes. There's going to be a lot of new information. There's going to be a lot of spin. And I just think that it's really important to, when you're looking at all this stuff, because it is distressing, especially for someone who isn't terminally online, gazing into the abyss, seeing all sorts of crazy stuff happening in the country and around the world, that, you know, it's okay to take a step back, take a deep breath, and maybe take everything that you've heard and will be hearing for the next couple of days with a grain of salt until, like, you know, something crystallizes and you actually have a story that you can read and, you know, understand exactly what had happened. So yeah, that's about my 2 cents, and don't really have too much more to say about it for probably the next week. So
I have one last thing to say.
Yeah.
And that is to prepare yourself mentally based on these events. I think things will genuinely get worse because they have been considerably getting worse for the last like several years. But what I will say is, if we take it at face value, where it's most likely a standalone actor, right? Not going down any conspiracy tunnels or anything like that. It's standalone actor. There is a good chance that might embolden, by the fact that he almost went through with it, that might embolden other actors to try and commit the same act. Hopefully not. Hopefully that doesn't occur. And the rest of the week or going forward is more peaceful. But I do want to say to the viewer, you should consider and try and mentally prepare yourself that this might be a multifaceted event that continues on. That's at least a concern I have.
No, yeah, and that's perfect. I really don't have much else to add. This is going to bring us into our sponsor segment. We have 2 sponsors today: Daniel Defense and EOTech.
Oh,
No, I'm just kidding.
Imagine.
you had me for a second.
With your foregrip all the way at the end of the rail, Daniel Defense. Now, all right. So now to
how are you
discuss.
supposed to make shots if your foregrip isn't all the way at the end of your rail, dude?
Yeah, no, you got to get that C clamp. Who is that? Chris Costa? Chris Costa?
Yeah, man.
C clamp.
It's the official rifle of school shooters everywhere. Don't know how they get a hold of those things, but hey, they somehow do.
Yeah, I can't
Food for
afford it,
thought.
but they can. That was a bad joke. That was a dark joke. Don't do it.
Horrible. And I loved it.
Oh, podcasting.
This will be on the blooper reel. All right, so on to the video this week. I talked about long range packs. All right, long range packs can be whatever it means to you and what your heart desires. But to a prepared citizen or someone who's taking an interest in what's going on globally and domestically, long range pack is going to be something for you to take with you that's going to be able to sustain you for anywhere from 5 to 8 days. Um, and again, that whole purpose of it, right, is to keep you alive, and it's to have everything that you possibly can have in there. And I know there are people in here with experience with moving long distances with anywhere from 25 to 55, 65 pounds on their back. And we all know it sucks. So you should get in shape, start working out, start taking things seriously. But just know that, there is a purpose behind having this sort of stuff, right? So why do you want a long range pack? And I'll open this up to everyone here in a second. But for me, and for what I like to tell people, having that long range pack is not everything's going to be perfect. Natural disasters, we see it all the time. Roadways start closing up. You might not have that transportation at your fingertips where I can just get in my car and go, right? Unless you're in some lifted off-roader, 9 out of 10 people aren't going to have that. So they're going to get stuck. They're going to have to move on foot. So that's where your long range pack comes in. And again, having that sustainability for anywhere just out a week to a little over, it's going to be beneficial for your survival. And like like Art brought up last podcast, right? It doesn't even need to be an enemy force has invaded or civil unrest. It could be natural disaster as well, or something that's just very inconvenient. But having this pack is going to increase your odds in lasting in a nuclear apocalypse, a nuclear winter, again, civil unrest, all these different things. But yeah, so the physical aspect of it, right? You just need to be in shape. If you're going to be physically fit, right? It's not just lifting weights or it's not just cardio. You have to mix the two things together. And a ruck is weight, a long range pack is weight. So practicing, understanding your limitations, understanding how far you can go is going to be beneficial to what you need to do at the end of the day to move forward and be able to say, hey, I'm good if anything bad happens. But what do you guys think for the physical aspect of it, right? What do you think is important?
I'll say real quick the physical thing. Again, just gonna keep it somewhat short. Yeah, everyone focuses like, yeah, spec ops, all this shit, lift heavy, be able to do all that. Biggest thing is endurance. Endurance is what kills everybody. Focus on that. Yes, you still want to be able to lift. You still want to be able to carry your weight, possibly help someone else out carry some of their weight. If hopefully you don't have to, but if need be. But endurance is the main killer for anything like this.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up because rucking isn't exactly high on the list of just sexy things to do as a prepper or as a cool guy, high speed, whatever, fill in the blank, right? Even if you are in a social unrest situation or something to that effect, and it just so happens that you are never in a position where you need to have a ruck on your back or move heavy amounts of weight, just as a exercise, as something functional, as something that engages your core, your legs, your cardiovascular system, rucking is fantastic as something to use for your own personal physical fitness. I myself have been rucking off and on, well, when I was in the Army, and since I've gotten out, haven't been as consistent with it, but it's always something I like to go back to because it covers a whole lot of bases. And again, it's functional. There's not a whole lot of downsides to spending a lot of time out on the road with a pack on your back, outside of course, potential injury if you're not being wise or you're not recovering properly. So,
Art, I know this one's a little closer to home for you.
Yeah. So part of my philosophy of getting more fit personally, like just me, is doing exercises that are actually applicable to what you're concerned about. So I in the last month or so, I've been doing a lot of rucking, which I will say, rucking lower, if you do lower end weight and you do distance like 35 pounds, it improves your health in such a significant way. Like you do it for a little bit and then you go off without that weight, and the change in your body, how easy that is for you to move that distance is significant. But I wanted to go. First of all, I agree with everything Outrunner said, but I wanted to go back to Coyote because I think he actually had a great point, which is it's carrying your weight or others. Like a lot of people in the podcast, you have they'll have family members, like people who listen, and you might be mentally orientated towards this subject, towards this problem. That doesn't mean your family is, and people aren't going to just leave their family by the wayside. That's that's how it is. You care about your family. So you need to get fit so you can take care of others. Like if someone else, if you have to move a longer distance, several miles, and everyone has to carry their own food source, and you have a family member who just gives up halfway, you can't stop. So getting used to that movement, to that weight, super important. And to go a bit deeper to that, I think that will be rucking is super important in general for your concerns of the future. Like there are so many things that can happen. We've talked about natural disasters, et cetera, et cetera. There's some disasters that are ridiculous, but they can happen. Solar flares taking out technology. You don't have a car anymore. everything you have to do is walking at that point. And if you get used to, moving with like a 35-pound like ruck pack or etc., and you get used to that moving 4 miles, 5 miles, 6 miles or whatever, and then things get bad and you have to walk, you got to walk like 3 miles to town without that weight, much easier. So yeah, like when I was getting concerned about fitness, my concern was based mostly on real life problems for the future, and that was one of them, was moving with things that I need for long distances. And yeah, that's basically what I gotta say. I feel it's super important. I think you shouldn't lack on it. Even if you're like, I lift a lot of heavy weights, I'm fucking ripped. That's all great if you can't move 4 miles without getting fucking exhausted. Doesn't mean shit. So that's my
You got to survive the movement to the gunfight.
Yep.
You might be super high speed, know all of your CQB, know your corners, have, just great chemistry with the boys around you. But if you can't make that movement from point A to point B without being just combat ineffective, well, you've done something wrong, and you're going to find that out the hard way. So
that movement and the gunfight is the other thing I'm thinking of. That's my concern.
Mhm.
I think that's
well,
what
right.
can't avoid.
If it's just a movement, I mean, it's point A to point B, you'll get there eventually. But you guys have talked these last couple of weeks on this podcast a lot about not being a liability, right? It's kind of a focal theme to this podcast. It's been great, and I feel like it's such a great thing to maintain in your mind when you're thinking about, how am I preparing? How are my decisions that I am making today affecting situations that I might find myself in tomorrow? Whether that be physical fitness, whether that be diet, whether that be just soft skills, hard skills, things that you might need in a crisis. And, if you're, say, the man of the house, or you are someone with a family, right? They're going to be looking to you for leadership and for guidance. And, what version of you is going to show up? Because, we don't tend to rise to the occasion in a crisis. We tend to sink to the level of our training. That's mental training, that's physical training, that's all those things. So something to keep in mind. And yeah, to loop that back into rucking, rucking's also really mental. We talk a lot about the physical here, where, you can get really winded with X amount of pounds on your back, right? For X amount of miles, you can fill in the blanks there for whatever is relevant for you. But mentally, to know that beyond a shadow of doubt, I can throw 35, 45, 65 pounds on my back, and I can get from point A to point B, a known distance, in a certain amount of time. That's a lot of mental bandwidth that you're no longer worried about. That you're capable. Like, it's one thing to think and to believe in yourself that you can do the thing, but to have that preponderance of evidence behind you based off of anywhere from weeks to months to years of preparation for that situation, right, in the back of your mind, there's no comparison, to know for certain that you are capable of doing the thing. So
yeah, and I'm agreeing with what everyone here says. There's two things I want to add to this. One, right, a lot of you guys that are listening, right, you came from the video, or maybe you came from TFD or my page, or someone shared it to you, whatever it is, right? A lot of people, if you're getting interested in this sort of stuff, right, in that physical aspect of it, you might think, man, I don't want to be that fucking weirdo who is walking around his neighborhood with a loaded backpack. And you might be a little self-conscious of what you're doing. And one good way, and I talked about it in the video, you guys can go on Google and just type in BLM land near me. BLM is the Bureau of Land Management. Yeah, that is your taxpayer dollars get funded for that. It's usually for area preservation. You can camp on there, you can hunt on there, you can shoot, you can do a whole bunch of stuff on BLM land. And one of the greatest things you can do on there is you can go ruck, you can go run, you can go practice your survival skills, whatever it is. But you can utilize that area if you are too embarrassed to ruck around in your neighborhood. And I'm not saying embarrassed as in you should be ashamed of yourself, but some people, they're new to this, they're not comfortable with it yet. So you have
Self-conscious.
that. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a point where everyone's like, oh, maybe I should just not care what people are thinking about me. But the other thing of this too is rucking is really, really great. And like Outrunner said, it is a mental game, right? Every ruck I've been on, an hour and a half to 3 hours in, I'm like, man, I hate this. It's extremely important, but a lot of you will sit here and think, okay, I can get from point A to point B pretty quick. Okay, I can do this, or maybe I can train up to it. One thing I suggest you guys do is find elevation, right? You guys can go stay on a road the entire time, and you're like, man, I just crushed 15 miles in 3 hours. I'm flying. Add elevation into that, and you are going to be sorely mistaken on where you thought you could go and what you thought you could do in a timely manner. Um, and I think a really good thing for that, again, with the BLM land, right? Unless you're, I don't know, I don't think Oklahoma has hills. But finding hills nearby or even finding rocks to climb over with your ruck. It may sound stupid, but at some point or another, you might have to come across that terrain that is unforgiving and it's not in your best interest, but you have to use it. So finding that elevation, finding that harsh terrain to move over is going to be beneficial again for you to be more prepared, right? Again, you're not just used to I'm walking on asphalt or concrete. Now it's, hey, I know how well my shoes work for me. I know how my ruck is sitting when I'm trying to climb over something. Do I even have the ability to do that? Do I need to do more push-ups or weight training, whatever it is? But find that elevation.
And to add to that, even simpler than BLM, that's the point of the podcast. You can only think of so many things at once. Just hiking trails. That's what I do for my rucks. It's a hiking trail. It's all uphill, the entire thing. So it's like my first half of the ruck is uphill, and the second half is downhill. Everyone lives somewhere where there's a hiking trail, at least one, unless you live in the city. If you live in the city, it is what it is.
You live in the city, there's something.
Yeah,
Promise you there's something if you look hard enough.
Yeah,
well,
there might be
even
something,
for
but incorporate something else. Maybe you incorporate like parts of the city that have higher elevation. You work on going up parking structures, etc.
And you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say you got parking structures and also like a Stairmaster, right? I know that we don't really think of treadmills and things inside of a gym, but at my apartment complex that I'm currently living in, I have a Stairmaster just about a 1 minute walk away from me. So if I'm not feeling like going to one of the local parks around where I live, I could just take it there, get a little bit of work in that. I mean, it's not going to simulate actual elevation as far as maybe thinner air if I was up in the mountains. But, if you've ever spent any time on a Stairmaster, imagine how much harder that is with weight on your back. So it's a great training tool.
I'm going to backpedal just a tiny bit.
That's what I was going to say.
Back to the whole mental thing. But the amount of people I've seen, like they'll start out a ruck feeling all great, this and that. The second they start feeling tired, they just stop. They give up.
Yep.
Then I've had other dudes, they're slow as hell. You're waiting for them to catch up, this and that, but they don't ever stop moving. And frankly, it's those dudes I respect a little more. Yes, they're slow, but they're not stopping. They're not wasting time. Wasting time ain't going to do you no favors at all.
And there's something to be said for having that mindset of, hey, I might not be the fastest, I might not be the strongest, but by God, I'm going to get from point A to point B. It's going to happen one way or another. So, your mind will convince you to quit far sooner than your body will give out, more often than not. So, bet on yourself. Work a little harder.
Consistency. If you keep doing it, like what Coyote was saying about those people who are slow, but they make it all the way. It's just consistency. If you do, like, I'm doing it at the extreme where I'm doing like 4 days a week. That's not normal. Don't do that. Probably. I'm not a doctor, but if you consistently do it at 2 times a week or something, you do 4 miles, 35 pounds or something, you will see a significant difference in how easy it is. And like a personal experience, I was going, and the whole time I'm human, like I have that brain failure where my brain is like, dude, I've had a hard day already. Like, I'm gonna do 1 mile, 1 mile in, 1 mile back. I'll at least get the exercise. I'm good. And then like you just let yourself push past that point. Like if your feet keep moving, accept it. That's a big part. And then another thing I'll say is interest. Like that's one thing that's helped me a lot is I've moved to a certain point and then I'm like, oh, there's like a bend in this trail. I wonder if something's really cool past that. And that I'll go past my designated point for how many miles I need to do that day or whatever to see what's up. You have a greater workout, you've gone further, you're moving with the weight, you're helping your body, but like you're experiencing more.
My bad, I
Yeah,
didn't cut you off.
go ahead.
No, I'd say plus with the whole interest and curiosity thing, you're distracting your mind from what you're gonna be hurting. Helping distract your mind a bit ain't the worst thing. Yes, you still want to maintain somewhat of awareness of what's going on, especially for the situations that we're mainly about. But find a way to get your mind off of just hurting, sucking, hating your life. It can be something as simple as just popping in an earbud, munching down on like a gummy worm or something, anything like that. It helps. It works wonders.
There's a good thing that me and Art say to each other when we're feeling down and we're like, I don't know if I can do this. Just remember, if you're struggling through anything, right, your biggest thing is going to be you're doing this for yourself and your family if you have one. The second thing you can really think about that I know a lot of men that are listening to this will probably take to heart is if you're like, man, I don't think I can make this. Just remember, if you can't make it, you're gay and your family's gonna die. So don't do
Your
that.
family's gonna die, dude.
And yeah, like
Jesus.
just go faster, right? But like in all seriousness, like the mental thing is probably going to be your biggest hurdle, right? You're probably not going to snap your legs on a ruck, but it's you fighting yourself, right? And you can sit there and think, don't be a fucking pussy. And that's good. That lasts for so long though. But just finding that motivation, what's getting you there. And then the other thing, like Coyote talked about, just keep moving, right? Just keep going. You don't have to be doing 6-minute miles with a ruck and clothing and kit and all this shit. Just keep moving. Go. Even if
No.
you're slow with it, you can still cover distance, right? That's your biggest thing, right? If you sprint a mile and then you have to take an hour-long rest, like you're just wasting your own time. Outrunner, you were saying?
Yeah. Before I tried to cut you off there, you gotta find your why, and it's got to be bigger than yourself. Be completely honest with you. You got to find a reason that you are out there sucking. You know, when you're on that 7th or 8th mile and you're going up and down hills and you're in the suck, you know, it's not, you know, your standard motivation that's able to get you through your 1 hour at the gym every day. That's probably not going to cut it. You know, you're going to have to dig deep. And in order to dig deep, you know, you really need something to really hold on to, whether that be family, whether that be God, whether that be country. You know, maybe you can do it for you, and, you know, hats off to you if, you know, that works well enough for you. But, you know, I think there's something to be said.
Yeah, a saying that I love to go by because it fits everywhere. It's applicable everywhere. Where there's will, there's a way. Simple as that.
Yeah,
For sure.
Yep. I
I
think we
have
need
one
to-
last thing.
Okay.
Last thing. And then, yeah, we're done. I know it's over. For the viewer, from my personal experience, you need more protein than you're consuming. You think you're consuming enough, you're not. You need like 150 grams plus protein a day. You think you're getting enough. You think your one protein shake after working out is enough. It's not. It's not. The fucking food pyramid lied to you. It's bullshit. The second thing's gone. Don't know what it is. That was the first thing. You need more
hey,
protein.
I do not have a degree in fitness or anything for that matter, so you guys can go down in the comments and chastise me for this. But good rule of thumb is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. I've heard that a lot. I've been told that throughout my entire just fitness journey from high school all the way up to the tender age that I'm at now. And generally, again, pretty good rule of thumb. So
I know my second point, and then we have to like move to the next thing. This has been way too long of a segment. The second thing is your first week will suck ass if you start low for the average, like the person who's never done it before. Start a minimal amount of miles. You're doing like I don't know, 2.5 miles for the beginning, 20 pounds of weight. Start low, increase weekly. And the first week will suck. It will hurt. Your feet will blister. It will be bad. Go past that first week. It gets exponentially better. I've been doing it 4 days a week. If you do it just like 2, I'm assuming it'll be the same. And that might even be better for you. You'll have a faster recovery time because it's a much greater distance between actual ruts. The first week is the worst. I guarantee it. The second week will be a little bad as well. Once you reach that third week, your body is like completely adjusted to being like, okay, this is what we're doing now. This is a part of our life. And that's we were talking about like things sucking and it's bad. That it will help exponentially. You do like 2 times a week. That third week, you're good. It even going further is nothing. Like it sucks still, like everyone said. It sucks so much less. Like it's almost just like an annoyance at that point if you're consistent with it. And with that, just what's the next section?
Well, last thing I'll say, statistically speaking, it takes 21 days to break a bad habit and 3 days to create a new habit, whether it's good or bad, right? So if you are built like a Mucinex booger, spend the next 3 weeks trying to break that bad habit of eating like shit, not working out, sitting on your ass, and then once you break through that barrier, you'll notice things are going to get easier. But there's 2 things I want to say that I mentioned in the podcast or the video. The first one is where I lost a portion of viewers. Uh, if you are planning on using a long range ruck or a long range pack, and you think having your back panel or a back panel is going to be beneficial, you're going to just get hurt. All right. And I said it in the video, I fell into the whole everyone needs a back panel. Everyone needs like everyone's guilty of it at some point in time. I fell into it and then I tried to ruck with it and I was in a shitload of pain. So just remember, if you're going to be putting on that pack, you can still wear your plate carrier, chest rig, whatever gear. Have a way to take off that back panel and store it if you absolutely need to have that, because you don't want to screw yourself in the long run of, hey, I have to use this ruck, this pack, and now that I have this back panel, it's screwing me up. I'm not taking it off. Now you're just going to screw your body in the long run. And the other thing too, which I think is very important, you don't have to buy everything at once, right? I went over probably 70 different items that you could purchase or think about or whatever. And I had linked everything in the video in the description, but you don't need to buy everything at once. There's no point in putting your family into poverty based off of, I need to be ready right now, right? It costs a lot of money. I wouldn't say a lot depending on, what your budget is and how you want to do things. But like I just said, you have a budget, right? If you are like the rest of the Americans, right, making anywhere under $45,000 a year, right? Have that thing aside where like, hey, this is the money that I freely blow after my paycheck, maybe once or twice a month, taking that money and putting it towards something that I can use or something that's going to benefit me if something does happen, right? And if you're rich, like I said in the video, fucking go nuts, right? Go treat yourself to what you normally do, buy a whole bunch of shit, and just be ready out of one order, right? But again, for everyone else there, take time to build what you need to build, save that money up, right? Maybe you want to buy everything that isn't the rucksack because you want to put $500 into it because you found a malice pack or whatever it is, right? But just figuring out what you need immediately and what you can hold off on. So getting into the first thing is going to be your pack or your rucksack selection, and I'll stand by these two because these are the best ones I've used. And again, I'll open it up to the floor, but I have used an Alice pack longer than anything, and I love it. And the reason I use it that long is because I love it, because it works. It does everything I possibly need to. And the other thing is that Marting Top bag that I had talked about in the video, which if you haven't watched it, you're just listening to this, you can just click that video, go in the description really quick. I put every name to every piece of gear we talked about, and then I put an Amazon link directly under it. So you don't have to do any of the guesswork, but those two packs have been the best for me. I've used Malice packs, I've used Mystery Ranch, I've used the Marine Corps ILBE or FILB, whatever they call it, Army issued shit, and everything in between. And these two packs are great. They hold everything I need it to. They're spacious. You can cinch everything down, and you're not having to have that guesswork of, am I going to have this fit? Those two things they're going to cover everything that you're going to need them to cover. But for experiences wise, like, again, I'll open this up. What have you guys seen that you guys like, or recommendations, or that for when it comes to selecting a ruck?
Yeah, I'll take point on this one. As it stands right now, I too am using an Alice. I am an Alice enjoyer. It is a very good system. It's been used for decades. Not sure. Oh yes, thank you, sir. I'm not. I do not recall when it first came into service, but I know it's been decades. I know that the Alice pack and its just affiliated load-bearing equipment, it's been around forever. It is tried and true. And even if you decide, maybe I don't want to use this as my actual tactical kit, it's still a fantastic training implement. Also, I have some experience with the Molly too. That's what the Army issued me. That's how I learned to ruck, how to do it correctly. What I've found is, work with what you have, for one. If you're completely new to rucking, go to your local milsurp, ask if they have any rucks. It's more than likely that they're either going to have a Molly or they're going to have an Alice. You're going to pick one. They're not all that expensive. I would say that what is even more important than your ruck selection is going to be how you end up packing it. Okay. So without getting too far in the weeds here, there is a right and a wrong way to do it. If you have your ruck and all of the weight is at the very bottom of it, what it's going to do is it's going to start pulling right from your lower back all the way up to the top of your back. And it's going to pull you down, and it's not going to sit right in a way where your hips, right, where kind of all the power comes from, where you're able to move yourself forward with the weight. You're not going to be able to transfer that weight, transfer that power into a forward motion in the most efficient way, in the most comfortable way, and in the most sustainable way. You're going to develop hot spots. You're going to develop blisters, places on your body that rub, that do not feel good. And this is trial and error, by the way. Everyone has different hot spots. Everyone has different rub spots. And you kind of have to figure out where you are at with whatever your ruck is and how it is sitting on you. So wrong way, have all the weight sunk to the bottom, everything thrown in all cattywampus. Right way, have a little bit of method to the madness and try to have all of the weight be towards the top of the pack. So with both of these packs that I have used and recommend to varying degrees, they're typically going to have a divider, right? It's going to go around the middle, around the midline of the pack. If you keep your heavier stuff on top and you pack your lighter, more fluffy stuff perhaps in the bottom, that weight distribution is now a little bit higher. It's a little bit higher on your back, where it's a lot easier to manipulate. It's a lot easier to move. You're not going to feel as though you're being dragged down towards the ground. You're just going to feel like, oh, okay, I have this. It is on my back and it is heavy, but it feels like it's not going to kill me. And then as far as weight is concerned, start light, progressive overload. Art was talking about that a little bit earlier with his experience in rucking and how he's recently gotten into it and has jumped both feet in, into the deep end with all of this and is out there doing the thing, which is great to see.
That's my baby.
Yep, that's our guy. You know, he's spreading our wings and flying, and we love to see it. So, all that to say, try different things and start light and learn how your body works, learn what you can handle, and go up from there. So,
Which on the experimentation part of it, like, yeah, it's the same with every other piece of kit you're ever gonna wear. No one's always gonna like the same stuff. Cool, your favorite person set like online says they'll use this and that. It's not gonna work for everyone. Like I'll say ruck wise, in a personal setting, I'm a dumbass who went for the high speed operator load, so I don't have jack shit for sustainment, long distance, any of that stuff. But with being Army, I still have some experience with the Molly 2, as mentioned before, which, personal opinion, sucks, but it still gets the job done. And end of the day, that's kind of what matters more than anything. But yeah, just experiment, play around with stuff. Like I'm looking soon about picking up a bit of a Frankenruck, taking that Marine Philby, throwing onto an Alice frame, just seeing how that goes. So yeah, just play with it, see what works for you.
comparatively, the Molly does indeed suck in comparison to the Atlas. But one man's opinion. By all means, try them out. Decide for yourself.
Yeah.
One thing we had talked about in the chats earlier, and I didn't mean to cut you off, Art. Understanding too, right? You might like something that's going to be able to hold everything, and it's really wide. Just understand, like how everyone's been saying, understand your body. Some of us were talking about it. Like, I liked the Malice pack that Tactical Tailor uses or makes, but I am built like an orangutan, and my arms are obnoxiously long. So when I was rucking with it, I would be hitting the side pouches because it's very wide, not as tall. The Alice pack is a good mix of both. I don't notice the rubbing and hitting, and then the Marting top is super tall, not as wide. So just understanding like that is something that you need to think about, and then like they all talked about before, where it's sitting on your body. But Art, what have you noticed with your rucking and your pack that you chose?
Yeah, so
Or
I
tell
have
us about your
a
pack.
yeah.
Nice.
My pack is a Mr. Ranch 3-day. And that's actually kind of what I want to contribute because I think you guys have good opinions about surplus gear or current army gear and stuff. One thing I didn't want to ask is what is the name of the current army? It's like a 3-day pack. What is it called for people to look up? It's not the Alice. It's like an Alice, but it's modern. It has like the multicam. Well, what do they
The
call
Molly
it?
2?
It's
Yeah,
it just
It's the Molly?
medium ruck. If you go
Oh,
online
medium.
and just type in
That one.
Army medium ruck, that is the 3-day pack.
Okay, I wanted to give
Yes.
like a surplus version of a 3-day pack, essentially. That, sorry, I don't know why I'm dying. I wanted to give something that had a more modern camo pattern, but was familiar. But my contributions are, I think the 3-day packs are fantastic, and I think most likely as a civilian that is the most you will need. You do not need the massive long movement rucks where you're like moving states, like you have to have everything you'll need for weeks. I think that a 3-day ruck is solid. That's super easy to look up, like a 3-day backpack. Most of them have great paneling, etc., etc. And then in my notes going over the actual video, I had one thing highlighted, which was you can move stuff. I do think Outrunner was great when he explained how to like prepare your pack. I think
you.
that's important. But
Get a room.
Everything off the bat.
Don't.
and I also like what Coyote said about like figuring out what works and maybe even customizing things. I'm a big fan of like manipulating your gear to fit you better or work for you better. That's how I should have said that.
And, to piggyback off of that, your mission is going to dictate the gear. Okay. I know Will was talking a little bit about back panels a few minutes ago, and now Artist is talking to us about 3-day packs. And gosh, Coyote and I were talking about Mollies and Alice's. All fantastic pieces of equipment. Okay. But if you have the wrong piece of equipment for the job, you may or may not be as suited to the task at hand. So, I mean, if you have something that's requires a 3-day pack, don't feel like you need to find a Molly 2, which is potentially a massive, just pack where you feel as though I have so much space for so many things, for so many different activities. I'm going to make sure I have all of it just in case if I need it. Spoiler alert, you're going to end up not needing hardly any of that stuff, and you're going to lug it around. And you'll be wishing that you stuck with the smaller 3-day pack and stuck with just what you needed for whatever the current situation required. But on the flip side, God forbid you do need to take over 100 pounds worth of equipment from point A to point B, you are going to be needing something a little bit larger like a Molly. Now, I'm not saying you should go out and purchase 3 or 4 different rucksacks or packs of different sizes so that you can have all of these things. I would say probably like what Artist was working with, find a 3-day pack, find something intermediate that you can utilize as a training device, and then scale up and scale down as you have a better understanding of what will be required of you, or what's most likely rather to be required of you, and what your budget can handle.
I want to say one thing. Again, in one of the chats we were talking about it, that 3-day pack or having something to carry a smaller load. Excuse me. I'm a huge believer in I'd rather have it and not need it, right? And sometimes that can bite me in the ass, right? But at the end of the day, I'll take that one because everyday life isn't going to be like the military where you have a supply system and you have all these means to do extra shit. As a normal human being who doesn't have any of that and enjoys their life and enjoys their freedoms because they don't have to be dictated by stupid stuff all the time. You know, that whole MET-TC mindset, or that the mission dictates, right? That is very applicable, but it only goes so far. And for
what does
me,
MET-TC mean?
How do I explain this? Do you want just the acronym, or do
Yeah,
you want like
just for the public? Yeah, what is it?
Let's get the
What does it
acronym.
mean?
So MET-TC is mission, enemy, terrain, troops available, time, and civilian considerations, right? That's what you're taking into. You'll hear a lot where it's like, oh, what do I do in this situation? It's just MET-TC. So it's like, what are you seeing? What's happening around you? It's essentially like who, what, when, where, why is going on around you, and how am I applicable, or how is my gear applicable to this? Which, thank you for calling me out on that, Art. I know we talked about that before.
One of y'all are fats cringe when y'all heard that term. I know for a fact y'all did. I did.
Yeah, I absolutely did saying it. But no, one of the big things that we discussed was having the ability to also have, if you like, because the whole point of this is long range. It's going to be 5 to 8 days, right? I need to move farther or need to carry more, but there's going to be times in that duration of time where you're moving, where you might not need to be moving with a ruck. If you're having to do some sort of reconnaissance to see if the next area you're going to is going to be beneficial, whatever the case is, right? And we'll cover that in another video, how to do recon and all that sort of stuff. But one thing that can work for you, right, is having a smaller pack, not even a 3-day pack, an assault pack style backpack, which is just a regular backpack, or military surplus, but having that with your main bag and being able to take some stuff out of your long range pack, throw it in there, and then move, right? Usually just food, water, maybe some ammunition, what weather gear, right? Whatever you think is applicable. But one thing I really wanted to recommend was the Army had for a while. I mean, it's still used in a lot of units. It's a radio pack, right? And it's an Alice-based system. It doesn't have a metal frame or anything. There's actually no frame. It's just backpack straps, but it's about the size, a little bit bigger than an assault pack, or like a medium-sized JanSport. But you can roll that thing up the same way you'd roll up maybe like a jacket, and stuff it in there, right? That way you can pull it out and rip it in, but it's not taking up a whole bunch of space, and you have that means to, hey, I need to dump my pack here, and I need to go hike this mountain really quick to see what's on the other side of it. If I have all this weight with my my long range pack. It's just going to take me too long. So having the ability to break that down, take it up with you, have your essentials there for whatever you need. Maybe you need to spend a few hours at night, whatever the case is, you might want to consider having that option, right? And again, we've talked about it before. A lot of the stuff you can find military surplus. Just yesterday, I went to my local surplus person, and he had that pack. I can't remember. It was either $15 or $25, and that's a steal. It's usually like M81, which is God's Plaid. It's woodland.
God, I hate
But
you.
it's usually that color or like a ranger green or something like that. But you know, it has camouflaging somewhat to it. But yeah, again, they're tried and true. They work. You don't have to go spend, you know, $285 on an assault pack from some, you know, some brand or whatever the case is, right? You can cheap out on certain things, and I think that is one of them. But yeah, sorry to kind of take over there. But yeah, I just wanted to get that out there,
Yeah.
let people know there's that
Yeah,
option.
I only have two things left before we go to the next section for my portion at least. In my notes. One of the things you didn't go over in the video for the average person that aids well with what we're talking about, and it goes with what I was saying, a 3-day pack. You can put stuff on the outside of your pack. Get a pack that allows you to mount additional equipment outside of your pack. I feel like that's very important. If you get a 3-day and it's slick, that doesn't mean shit. Like, you need to have the capacity to paracord, or maybe it has its own strap system, which is preferred. Sleep system stuff, which we talk about later. He talks about later in the video. Things like that, and that's all of that. Like packs have molly or straps, etc., allow you to expand a 3-day pack out to a much greater pack if needed be. And then my second thing was for older gear, like everyone's saying Alice packs are great. They probably are. I don't have any experience with them, but they probably are. You look them up and a lot of them come in just like flat green. Woodland, maybe, stuff like that. Spray paint is your friend. You can buy older surplus gear and then tailor it, like how we kind of talked about earlier, tailoring gear like your body, your needs, etc. You can use spray paint. In the video, he talked about scrim, but you can use scrim and spray paint to adjust your pack to fit your environment in a better way. And making sure I don't have anything else for this section, and that's it. That was it.
Yeah, no. If no one has anything else to say, I'll actually move into the next topic, which was ruck scrims or covers. Outrunner, I saw you. It kind of
Yeah,
looked up.
no, I was actually going to say I got nothing else. I feel like we covered that section pretty well. So let's move on to the next.
Sweet. Coyote, anything before we move on?
Nope, not that comes to mind right now.
Hell yeah, brother. All right. So like Art said, you know, you can scrim, you can paint, you can do a lot of things. And I didn't talk about it in the video because I kind of wanted to save it for this. Paint it and have that option for scrimming, right? And I mentioned a very simple way to do it because it takes the guesswork out of the average person who doesn't want to put a whole bunch of time into, you know, tailoring their equipment to their environment. A lot of airsoft stores or whatever close retailer that sells condor equipment, they usually have some sort of a sniper veil or a mesh netting, right? You can carry that with you. You can carry the camo netting. You can carry a tarp, whatever it is, right? You can carry that, you know, and you can spray paint your gear first. That way, your gear is already a majority of the time blending into your environment, unless you're moving drastically from Florida to the Alpines. But having that way to be able to drop something and it be pretty undetected is going to be good, just with the spray paint. But having that scrim alone, right? And again, I didn't bring it up because I wanted to bring it up here. A big reason for that purpose of the scrim, it's a wider source of concealment, right? So straight lines aren't natural in nature, right? And your eye's going to pick up things that don't look like they belong, right? So I could spray paint something as well as I want, and then I might try to store it or I might try to be hiding with it, your eyes are going to be more attuned to picking up on things that aren't matching your environment. But when I start adding stuff like camo netting to it, which is cut in a lot of different ways and it flares and it's hanging off, or even getting a little sniper veil, whatever the case is, you're breaking up that outline of that pack. And it's just going to be harder for someone to spot you or someone to find the stuff you didn't want them to find in the first place. But again, I think a camo net, you can go buy surplus camo net for pretty cheap. Don't just go online and buy a 50-foot by 50-foot camo net with poles and cut it up. It's going to be a ton of money. Find a surplus store or check the description in the long range pack video. I put a little, I think it was 10 feet by 3 feet, and it was like $15. You can get that, you can roll it up or cut it to whatever you need to do, and then you can throw it on there. And then same thing, that sniper veil, you can bunch it up. You can use zip ties or hair ties that kind of blend in with the environment, and you can kind of ball it up, kind of like you, if anyone's done a woman's hair, or if you have a daughter, your daughter's hair, but trying to make it into a little bun, right? You're pulling it up, so it's breaking up that exterior outline of what a backpack or a ruck should look like. But what do you guys have on that?
I have stuff if everyone else is good.
Yeah, go off, Art.
Yeah. My two contributions is another thing I didn't say for spray paint because I thought we were going to go more into like scrim and stuff. Rit dye.
Yeah. Oh my
that
god. Yeah.
you can rit if you buy an old like ACU pack and you're like, this is gray, this doesn't match anywhere. You can buy rit dye that's specifically for non-natural fibers, which is usually what most tactical gear is made of, and you can dye it green, and it also holds the original pattern. You can dye it green, you can dye it tan, etc., etc. So I highly recommend rit dye. There's so many YouTube videos on how to dye literally tactical gear specifically. You can find a ton of videos about it. So that was one. If you don't want to spray paint all your gear, spray paint might be a good idea because it does add almost like a plastic layer above your gear that might add some water protection. But if you didn't want to do that, rit dye is a really good recommendation. Look it up on YouTube. And the other thing he didn't mention in the video, but he did cover it. This is just like more hyper specific. There are so many websites who make scrim covers for rucks and packs and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
You can find them on Amazon. I have one for my pack specifically, but there are so many, and they're cut specifically for a certain amount of milliliters of a backpack. So it's like you have a 3-day, so many milliliters. You just look up the sizing, and it has elastic around it, so it like hugs your backpack, which means it'll stay on it while you move, et cetera, et cetera. So that's like a great option as well. If you don't want to just buy like a couple yards of scrim, you can buy a specific scrim pack that will hug your backpack that you can wear. And then if you do buy just like basic scrim or some other material that breaks up your pattern, you can take paracord with one of those, I don't know what they're called, but it's basically like you like put the cord through and it has like the button. Does anyone know what those are called?
A snap?
Is it called a snap? Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I think, yeah.
I don't know what it's called. But it's basically you can put cordage through it. It's on some like jackets and stuff like that. You can put cordage through it, and it has like a pressurized button that will hold the cordage in place.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll put a picture up right here so everyone knows what we're talking about.
Perfect. But anyways, you can buy like the straight stock scrim, et cetera, and then you can weave your own bungee cord, which you can also buy online by rolls, it's not even that expensive. Or you can run paracord, or Will mentions a different type of cord in the video. You could buy that, and you can run it through that and tighten it, cinch it up on your pack, and you can create the same effect. But that's just what I wanted to say is like there's ways of you can purchase one that pre-secures to your pack, or there are ways of securing it to your pet in a similar fashion. And that's what I got for the section.
Well, not too much to add to that without reiterating what Art just went over. Gosh, I mean, your scrim, again, concealment for your tactical situation. You want to break up those familiar shapes, those familiar outlines without getting too deep. I feel like this very quickly could be a slippery slope into camouflage and concealment and sort. So I'll try to not take it in that direction here. But if you're able to break up those familiar shapes, you're going to be less likely to be picked out by discerning eyes. So that's about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, everything's been covered for the most part. I don't really have much else to add, partially just because I don't have a whole lot of experience personally with camouflaging rucks specifically. So, yeah, everything's pretty much been said already.
Fair enough.
Sweet.
Cool.
Okay, we can start into some, I'd say equally, if not more important things, is your water source. Right. So we talked about a lot of water sources, brought up Nalgene's, canteens, and camelbacks for storing water, and then talked about a few ways to purify it. So kind of to reiterate that, I heavily recommend having 2 water sources, 2 to 3, right? One of them being a camelback. My recommendation is buying a smaller backpack, or if you do want to buy a camelback, go ahead and do it. But the bladder itself, don't just buy the generic like camelback brand or whatever you can get from Big Five or Walmart. Go on eBay and look up military issued Seaburn bladder. These bladders the walls on them are extremely thick. I have never had a Seaburn bladder break on me, and I've been using one for a very long time now, but I've never had it break. And that thicker wall keeps my water cooler a lot longer. I can't recommend that enough. It works really well. And then on top of that, if you do have an M50 or M51 gas mask or pro mask, the hose can plug directly into it, so you can drink through that. But even if you don't have it, right, it's protected from a lot of the harm that might be in the air, or if something bad like that happened, right, it is a step in preventing your water from getting messed with. The other thing too, so I said 3 things, right? So one of them being a camelback, and then 2 of them being a canteen or 2 Nalgenes, whether you keep an extra one in your ruck or you keep 2 canteens on your rig, whatever the case is, right? Having that means to, while I'm moving around, I can grab my canteen, drink from it, and put it right back. I'm not having to fuck with a hose. I may not have to take it off the system itself. And then when I run out of one canteen, I can go straight to the other, and then use that camelback to fill them up. Right, Nalgene is really good. I like Nalgenes; they hold a ton. You can buy military issued one if you want. I don't know why you would. It's the same shit you buy on Amazon. They do make Nalgene pouches that you can throw on anything that's MOLLE accepting. One thing I didn't mention in the video, if you live in a climate where it freezes a lot, water freezes over pretty easy. If you're using a Nalgene, take it and then put the mouth face down in whatever pack you're in, right? That water is going to freeze from the top to the bottom. And you don't want to be shit out of luck when you're dehydrated. You're like, I need water, or whatever it is bad. You pull your Nalgene out, you open the top and it's frozen. You can't get in your water, right? So turning it upside down, it'll freeze from top down again. So the mouth of that bottle will be the last thing to go, so you can actually have access to that water. And then we talked about having means to purify your water. So I talked about a few things, right? I talked about iodine tablets. There are specific actual like water purification tablets that you can buy. You can use regular unscented bleach. And then fuck, I'm forgetting one. Oh, life straws. You can use life straws as well. My problem with life straws is they do require a lot of effort to use. So understanding how to use that, whether it's, you fill a jug with river water and then you shove the life straw in there and drink it through that, or you put your face straight to a stream, you can do those things. But again, it's taking a lot of time from you being able to get off of the source of water, because statistically speaking, most people are lazy. And when they want to walk near available sources. So they might walk by that stream. So you keeping your footprint off of that as long as possible is beneficial.
using iodine tablets, right? I can't even get into the specifics of that one. It's going to tell you how to use it right on the box. I've used them, but every single manufacturer has different specifications for that. And the other thing is going to be bleach, right? It's 8 drops bleach per 1 gallon of water. Will kill the chemical or the bacteria in that. And then I brought up having a cheesecloth, right? And Art brought it up to me. I did not explain that well. I didn't say use cheesecloth as a way to filter your water. What I was trying to get at was use cheesecloth as a way to, whenever you purify your water, right? Keeping it in a separate container from what you're trying to drink out of. Whenever you purify it with whatever means it is, taking that cheesecloth, putting it around the top of it, and then transitioning it to where you want to drink out of. That's just getting all the nasty shit that was purified and maybe brought down to the bottom of that water source. It's keeping it away from what you're trying to actually drink. It's not purifying the water itself, but it's helping filter out debris, rocks, bugs, whatever the case is. It's catching a lot of that. And again, you can buy that at Walmart, Michael's, whatever store that's near you, or Amazon. And yeah, just small, compact, doesn't do anything. You can also use a balaclava, or, as stupid as it sounds, maybe some spandex, whatever it is, right? There's a way to filter debris from going into your water. You guys can go ahead and do that. But again, I'll open the floor up to more suggestions. I know Art had a lot to discuss with me on that in private. So if you want to talk about that, or Outrunner, Coyote, whoever it is, go for it.
You guys,
you did a
Oh,
wow.
all three of us
Okay.
at once. What the hell?
we all waited the exact amount of time.
Oh gosh, yeah, the Canadian standoff to see who was going to respond first. I actually don't have a whole lot to add to what you had to say, so I'm going to take the prerogative here. That was fantastic, all that info there. As far as hydration is concerned, okay, if you know that you're going out and you're going to go do a thing later in the week, your hydration begins in the days leading up to it. Do not expect to be able to chug a gallon of water the morning of and think, oh, I'm hydrated, I'm going to be completely fine.
What are you talking about? Every single service member does that the day of a ruck after drinking frivolous alcohol the night prior.
Okay, I was about to make sure you clear that part. I'll forget to handle whiskey the night prior.
All right, well, hey, everyone has their own strategy. Having been on both sides of that fence, ruck running after a night out of drinking and rucking with proper hydration the days prior, I can tell you that the latter of the two is a bit more meta than the former. All that to say, your salts as well. I know Army gives out Serasport. I think it's Serasport. Don't quote me on that.
It's more or less liquid IV is handed out more.
Okay, so liquid IV now. Coyote. Okay, wow. Well, I've been out
liquid
for
IV, and then
good old drip drop.
That's
drip
awesome.
Drop, there we go.
There it is. Okay, I've been out for about 3 years and some change, so things must have adjusted since then. But
not that nasty shit you're talking about.
Well, hey, it worked for me then, and by golly, it works now, I'm sure. But point all that aside, have some salts, right? Your electrolytes are very important for your muscular function and also for your mental function. If you're dehydrated, you're going to be nerfing your just cognitive capacity to, whatever given degree you're dehydrated. Don't expect to be at the top of your game if you haven't been drinking water. Now, there's other things that you can do, like caffeine to help you wake up, or other just things, right? Nothing beats water. It's what you were designed to intake, and it's what your body was designed to use to operate properly. So make sure that you're taking a sip from your trusty Vault 101 canteen every now and then, and just
13, man.
treating yourself well. Oh, is it 13? Again,
yeah, it's 13.
I have left video games behind long ago, so at least consistent.
You said nothing's better than water for hydration. I beg to differ. Brondo, all right. It's
what plants crave. This is true. How could I forget Brondo?
So here,
one thing I really quick, I want to just say, if you don't want to spend the money on buying electrolyte packets or whatever the case is, you can just take salt and throw it in your water. It tastes like shit, and you're
not a lot. You'll get sick.
Not a lot. Yeah, don't throw a whole pound in there.
Like a teaspoon.
Don't go drink in the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. But that'll help too, and it's very cost efficient. But sorry, open back up.
Yeah, so I'll say with it, following up on both points on both Will and Runner. Will first. Water sources. You're going to be, with that water, you're going to be doing more than just drinking it. So that's why Sats have those canteens with you. Personally, what I end up doing half the time, Camelback, I'm utilizing that whenever I'm stationary, then cool. I'll pop a canteen, use that canteen water for if I have anything that has any like water activated heaters or anything like that to cook food and whatnot. Then to follow up on Runner's stuff with the salt. Salt, for those of y'all who don't know, because I found out recently this is not common knowledge, but salt's what retains water in your body. For some reason, a lot of people don't know that, but salt, sodium, super important. Don't have too much though.
There's a balance. So
yes,
and also like as I said, kind of as a tongue-in-cheek joke, referencing Fallout, little sips, right? If you drink a entire Nalgene, I have a Nalgene in front of me that I believe is 32 ounces. If I were to chug this Nalgene right now, all of that hydration, I'm essentially going to piss it out probably within the next hour. Your body can only absorb so much at one time. And there's also such a thing as overhydrating. If you're overzealous with your water, you can, in a sense, and again, someone set me straight if this is bro science-y or if this is out of line here. But if you drink too much water, a lot of those sodiums, a lot of those electrolyte salts that your body needs, they're all going to get washed out. And you're going to be pissing clear, and you're going to be super proud of yourself. Because I'm so hydrated. I've been drinking so much water, and it's like, yeah, well, dummy, you should have paced yourself because now you've washed all of these just critical elements out of your body, and you don't even realize it. So
I can firsthand attest to that in my basic training OSUT shit. We actually had a kid die during one of our runs because he was overhydrated.
There you go. Proof in
so
the pudding.
Yeah. And then another thing with drinking water, too much water too quickly, especially if you're on the move, you're gonna log yourself.
You're gonna be sick.
Feel like shit. You will get nauseous. You will puke all that water up, and you drinking all that water has done nothing for you at that point.
If anything, it's done worse. I mean, the moment you start vomiting, I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah, you're gonna lose
if you're
more
vomiting, if you have diarrhea, again, that's completely separate issue. Also, iodine tablets, clean water. Don't take up an amoeba and have that make you sick, because then you're just going to dehydrate when it all exits your body from every orifice. So, yeah, wonderful visual.
Art, I know.
Looks
like you tried to talk a few times.
All right, yeah. So I specifically, because my personal interests go this route. So like to me, this is important, and also generally important and interesting. Get into it. Primitive survival skills. There are so many ways of purifying water that don't involve a limited resource. The iodine tablets are fantastic. The bleach is fantastic. The life straw, great. Those are all limited. They end up running out. If you boil water for 20 minutes, you kill like 90-something% of the bacteria. There are methods of filtering water through different granules. It's like a layer of sand, a layer of cloth, a layer of sand, a layer of cloth, charcoal, a layer of cloth, etc., etc. There's so much content on YouTube. Learn primitive survival skills. In a scenario, if you're in a scenario where you're worried about, I have to do long distance movements, that's the same world where you have to figure out how to produce water in the future. That's the same thing. Like we're talking to the civilian population. You are not a military that is going to have access to clean drinking water all the time because it's being supplied to you because it's mission important. The point of this podcast is for civilians who are concerned about things not going great. And a big part of things not going great is clean drinking water. And I think that, first of all, learn those things, retain them. That doesn't mean you have to skip all the other stuff, though. Buy the iodine tablets. Like, if you can have easy, quick water all the time, because you spend $10 on iodine tablets that'll give you like you can clear out like 200 Nalgene's on these like tablets or whatever in one bottle. Buy that. But in addition to your information, look into primitive cleaning methods for water. Humans have been drinking water for a long time. It's been harder some places, and some places didn't figure out as well. If you don't know, a lot of the primitive world drank alcohol almost exclusively because of how dangerous water can be. That alcohol is a better way of getting H2O into your body than physical water is. But there are so many ways that we understand now of purifying water. Boiling it is one of the easiest ways. And you can mix that, you mix match it. He talked about cheesecloth for removing like particulates. Cheeseclothing water or similar clothing water, in addition to boiling it for 20 minutes, it needs to be 20 minutes. That's very specific. Anything less doesn't it doesn't have the same like ratio of effect. That can give you completely purified great water to drink. That won't kill you. It might not look pretty, but there's not going to be things in it that can kill you. So that's really important. I wanted to, in my notes, I wanted to double check on the science of bleach and water, but you reiterated it, so that's good. And that's it. That was it. Yeah, just learn primitive skills. I'm going to go back to that for actually a couple things in this video. I'm a big supporter of bushcrafting, primitive survival, et cetera, all the wild, wacky terms. Fieldcraft, that's what it's called in the army, right? Fieldcraft.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, I mean, it applies both ways.
Okay, yeah. So it's like, I feel like that's really important to learn. There's a lot of these things, and like as in the video, I'm going to keep bringing it up. A lot of the issues that you come into can be met without physically purchasing an item by understanding natural world stuff like boiling water, purification through sedimentary like layers, etc. So that's all I got.
One thing you talked about too, having that primitive thing. I would say the flip side of that, having a way to take water where it can be accessed. And I talked about it in the extra items to consider towards the end of the video, but I'll bring it up now because this is where it's applicable. Two things you can have. One is some sort of adjustable wrench. And using that, you can access fire hydrants. And I had to do that for a course I took. And someone opened a fire hydrant, got water out of that, right? Really quick and efficient way of getting water to you and being able to close it off and move along.
That is not clean water. Don't drink that.
It's not. No, you still need to purify it. Still
Yeah,
need to take all those steps.
Yeah.
The other side of it too, you can go on Amazon, eBay, whatever the case is, water keys, right? A majority of the United States uses the same keys for a lot of things, right? I know there's a set of key rings that can go to every tractor, bobcat, whatever. There's certain things for electrical, but one of them is a water key. It's usually a 4-sided key. And when I'm saying key, it looks like a mini, God damn, I'm blanking on this. I mean, it looks like a mini tire iron, right? One of those 4-sided
socket
tire
wrench. Socket wrench, you're thinking.
Yeah, it's a tool.
Yeah, but
it's not like
essentially
it's a tool.
A majority of them are all going to be the same. It's going to take the same key. So you having that, right? It's just an additional way, right? It weighs, again, it's something that weighs almost nothing. And you can access a lot of water through that. And then if you want to carry a pipe wrench, a socket wrench, or an adjustable wrench of that sort, you can get into a fire hydrant. Again, throughout this whole thing, if you have access to clean water, use it, right? Don't waste your supplies or your time on trying to purify fucking dirty water if you have access to clean water. But exactly what Art said, understand how to do things a primitive way. And then understand how to do things with a modern way, right? Understand how to use the iodine tablets, understand how to boil water, understanding all these things, right? Just building yourself up, because you might know these things and you come across someone who is suffering, and you can help them out. You can show them something, and that's something that they're never going to forget. So just understanding those things and being able to apply yourself and being more of a an asset to whatever organization you're applying yourself towards or whatever community it is.
Last,
'Cause-
I have a
yeah,
last thing to contribute. This is not ruck related, but because we're talking about water, that's very important. If you think something bad is going to happen, hurricanes coming your way, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, uh, the power goes off, but you realize you still have running water. Fill your bathtubs.
yes, yep.
You will have to purify them in some way. Most likely, the easiest way is boiling it. Fill your bathtubs. Like the moment anything slightly sketchy happens. Worst case scenario, you empty the bathtub. You know, but best case scenario, you have so much drinking water at that point. And like additional water, like as we're people, you need to wash your hands. You can use a bowl, you can fill a bowl of water. And you can use that water to like clean your face, clean your hands, clean your body, et cetera, et cetera. And then the second thing is figure out where your local sources of water are. That's like super important. No one thinks about that because you have access to water 24/7 everywhere you go. Go to your 7-Eleven, free water all the time. Like, not free water, you gotta buy a bottle there. You go to a restaurant, they give you a glass of water, it's free. We don't think about that. Your tap produces water. There are things that happen to make your tap stop producing water. Learn where your local sources of water are. They may be gross, you may have to purify them, but it's like, where's the closest stream? Where's the closest river? Where's et cetera, et cetera. Maybe there's like an outlet for just like gray water and that's gross, but I can purify it to a point where I can drink it. Figure out where your local source of water is. And with that, I've no more things about water.
On top of that too, keep a supply of fresh water. Like you don't have to go full doomsday prepper, have a whole bunker full of fucking water and shit. Be something simple. Like I'll say myself personally, I keep a case of bottled water in my truck like 24/7, never leaves.
It's cheap
Yeah,
too. Yeah,
drink
that's a
every
great
now and
thing.
then, but I still keep a case in my truck just in case. Whether something goes to shit and I desperately need it, or something simple as, oh shit, I don't, I'm kind of out on a road trip right now. Cool, I have water right here. Crack up. Doesn't have to be super serious about it, but yeah, just keep water with you. Have a decent supply ready to go for anything.
Yeah, and speaking on what you're talking about, Dirty Civilian. If you guys don't know who they are, they make good content. Go ahead and check them out. They just did a video. I want to say it was a few days ago on actually keeping a water supply. And the other thing too, with what Art was talking about with the fieldcraft, bushcraft, primitive stuff. I mentioned in the last video, and I'll keep mentioning this guy because I've learned a lot just watching this guy's YouTube videos and then going and testing it myself. But Corporals Corner, I don't know what got into that man and why he loves it so much, but I'm glad he does because he does everything you can possibly think of for living off of the land with the bare minimum. So go ahead, look up Corporals Corner for all your bushcraft, fieldcraft, and just bare basic survival needs. And then, yeah, Dirty Civilian for pretty much everything else. But does anyone else have anything they want to talk about before we move on to the next section?
I'm good.
I'll say this real quick. Dirty Civilian, I'll double down on that one. Goes for everything. Like I recently found them and just different kit things between like, oh, an assault kit, sustainment kit, anything like that. Like there's a lot of good.
Next thing is going to be food sources. And I say food sources not because, hey, here's how you're going to crop, but just having means to food. Two things I talked about, right? I say a majority of the United States does not know how to hunt. And if something is to happen tomorrow, you may not learn that ability or you're going to learn it through trial by combat. But the two things I talked about was building your own food source for you to carry and then purchasing. And Art and I talked about this as well. He's got a bunch of good suggestions as well, things I would have never thought about. So I'm glad we had that discussion. But the one thing I do recommend out of the two is building your own. And what I mean by building your own food source, right? Understanding that, again, the whole point of this is 5 to 8 days worth of living out of a bag. So building my food source, for me, I want to use stuff like ramen, canned protein. If you want to carry canned vegetables, you absolutely can. But non-perishables. Even if you want to, carry a can of Campbell's, I don't know, do they make canned lasagna? That sounds terrible. But SpaghettiOs or stuff like that, right? Stuff that does give you certain amount of nutrition, has some things that you can benefit from, that are easy to cook or that you can just eat raw. It doesn't require you to heat it up. You're not making a meal, skinning a deer. I like those things because one, it's a comfort thing where I can cook it if I want to, and I talk about it in the video. Like, if you're having to throw this pack on, shit's not right. And if you can get to an area where you're not worrying about an enemy patrol or imminent danger, a chemical threat, you can get to an area and cook. That's going to build your morale so much better. It's going to motivate you. It's just small things that tack onto each other that just make life living out of a bag a little bit easier. And it's stuff that you like, right? You're not taking a guess on it. It's, hey, I like all this stuff. I know how much of this I can eat if I have to. The other thing is going to be buying MREs, right? And there's a lot of good discussions on like the pre-package. I think it's like Mountaintop or something like that.
It's the
but-
Mountain House meals you're talking about.
Mountain House. There we go.
Yeah.
Those are great. They require you to cook them, or at least a majority of them. But an MRE, right, which Art and I were talking about, it seems like MREs they have an easier access to purchase on Amazon now. I linked it in the video. You can buy a 6-pack for, I think, $65, right? And each MRE, you can really eat one of those a day and be pretty okay. But you can also load up on a few more of those. But that has everything that you could possibly need in it that's going to sustain you. Now, I know pretty much everyone in here can attest to this. And if you're listening and you're military, MREs fucking suck. You might have your favorite, but it gets fucking old after a while. And then the flip side of that
What do you
too,
mean,
it's
dog?
gonna
It's a full 5-star meal right there.
fuck, get out of here. You like the pizza one, don't you?
Oh fuck, that thing's disgusting. Hey,
but,
Italian. It was hash browns, but Italian sausage right now, dog. It's where it's at. I'm telling you,
dude, it's all chicken chunks pre them getting rid of the buffalo sauce. But
that's fair.
But one thing that is going to happen with MRE, it's going to back you up. You're taking in a lot of different things at once. You are going to get backed up. And I said in the video, if it backs you up and you can't shit, you're going to get constipated, right? That could cause problems. So I recommend that as a secondary option. And in the video, I talk about the food you can have and then ways to cook it. And I'll save that for the next thing we talk about. So I'll open it up for ways you can, make your own source of food or buying it. So I'll open it up to whoever wants to go.
Spam. Just spam. Honest to God. Protein, sodium. A can of spam will go a long fucking way.
MREs are great. They are convenient in that they are pre-packaged. They've already kind of had their calories and macros balanced out to varying degrees, depending on which one you pick out. They're not particularly cost effective, though. For someone who's going to be on a budget, and MRE, again, you're purchasing convenience there. And that's only on steroids if you pony up for the Mountain House meals. Mountain House meals are delicious. Truly delicious. They're fantastic. They're also going to cost you an arm and a leg, especially if you're trying to pack a whole, or you're trying to have a whole bunch of those in your stash, so to speak. Not saying to not have MREs. I think that you should have a relatively diversified pantry, as much as is capable, as much as your wallet allows, without going into poverty here. Costco is your friend when it comes to finding canned goods. I may or may not have my own little just food stash in my apartment in the event that, oh, hey, the truck that was supposed to bring in the new stock for all of the grocery stores didn't come in, and it now hasn't come in for the last month. It's good to have just a few things on hand in the event something like that isn't entirely out of the realm of possibility happens. As far as packing your stuff, though, and this goes for MREs, this goes for your canned goods if possible. If you know that you are going to be on a 3-day field op, let's just say that, or a 3-day mission where you're not necessarily sure if you're going to be able to get food or resupply, you're going to want to field strip all of that. Okay. Ounces are going to equal pounds. And even if it's just a couple of things out of that MRE that you picked the M&Ms and your main entree and whatever tasty things, the what is it, the jalapeno cashews, got to have those around, right?
Yep.
You pick those bad boys out, and then the rest of it, you get rid of it. And if you're working with canned food, well, guess what? That aluminum can, that tin can, whatever it's in, that's also weight. And if you can take the chicken out of the can and put it into a Ziploc bag, you're saving ounces there, right? So think about how you're preparing all these things when you're getting your kit together and you're about to set off on your grand adventure, and do yourself a favor and pack a little bit lighter. So
I'm gonna fully admit, I totally cringed a little bit. You said ounces equal pounds. You're not wrong.
oh yeah, no, it's well, so
It's just
the likes of
overplayed.
the likes
Yeah,
of you and me who spent time in the service, and we were probably beat over the head with that to death, along with other wonderful words like behoove. I'll stop there with army words, but
It'll
all that to
behoove
say,
you to listen
well,
to
I
this
might actually
podcast.
for someone on the outside looking in, though, these are considerations that the average person probably isn't going to think of. They're going to be awesome. MRE, throw that in the bag, check the box, move on to the next thing. And, it's the sum of the parts in a sense. If you are being a little bit more mindful with your packing every step of the way, it really is going to add up to a couple of pounds. And, that's, again, when we were talking at the beginning of this pod about rucking, like, it's going to get hard, and there's no sense of making it any harder on yourself. So, yeah.
Art.
Yeah, for my section, I have a out of left field thing, which is buy a dehydrator or learn how to smoke. There are ways of smoking meats that allow you to carry them with you, which is another primitive skill. That's its own thing. But let's just say on a more moderate, things aren't bad for a long time, consistent way. Buy a dehydrator. You can make a whole meal in your own home that you love. You can make like your favorite fettuccine alfredo, blah, 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 blah. And you can put it in a dehydrator. This is a tip that I learned from like a lot of camping people, like who do like long distance camping, et cetera, et cetera. That makes their trips a lot easier. And it's also a great way of getting calories, and it's super condensed is the best part. Buy a dehydrator. You dehydrate almost anything. It'll be long lasting, and with it's like super thin. Like if you watch a YouTube video about it before purchasing one, you basically load it on a tray, and by the time it's done, it's almost like brittle. Like it looks like it's about the size, the width and thickness of brittle, like peanut brittle. And yeah. And it's like it's lightweight. It's compact, it's easy to carry. You can get variety. You can pack multiple meals like super easily. And it requires cooking for the most part. But I think even with Mountain House, this is not the ideal thing to do. But let's say you're in an environment where cooking's not an option. You can put that water in there, seal it, and then leave it in your ruck over time. And that will soften the contents a significant amount. Another thing I will say that no one thinks about was very common in the past. If you're cooking something, you can add smoked or dehydrated meats into it to soften it and create like a protein that's easy to digest. That's not as hard to chew.
That is a good
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's like a super old thing people used to do a lot. If you have to boil something, you can throw jerky in there, you can throw dehydrated meats, et cetera, in there. And that water, that moisture, the heat will soften it significantly to the point where it's much more balanced to the appetite in the stomach, et cetera. So, yeah, like look into preparing your own MREs is kind of what I wanted to contribute to it. Gotta double check my notes because I take notes for this podcast. I care deeply about what we talk about. And we went over civilian MREs. That was a note. Who is Sean Ryan? That was something that came up in this.
Oh, yeah. I completely blanked on that. Sean Ryan. He is a Navy SEAL and CIA contractor who has a podcast that is, I would say, rivaling Joe Rogan. He's got a lot of great guests on from every walk of life, and he does not care about censoring things. But you can learn a lot just from listening to these people's experiences. He's had everyone from DJ Shipley on there. He had Christian Craghead, the CAG guy who stopped that hotel shooting. Like,
all right, the audience gets it. The audience gets it.
Yeah, shut up.
I'll say on that real quick, just because it's popped in my head. I want to say it before I forget it again. Whole thing with multiple people's different experiences. I mentioned it very, very beginning, like with kit stuff. Just because your favorite influencer says it, don't do it. Get from everyone, build your own thing based off them. Please. It irritates me when someone is always bringing up, oh, this person does this, I'm going to get this. Please don't do that.
This is all our opinions. We went over that in the first video. This is all opinion. If it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, just fucking disregard it. Use your own information, your own knowledge, your own ability to discern things. None of this is gospel. We talk about it from experience, so we're like, do this, because it's something we've done. It's all just opinion. That was a good point, Coyote. Thank you for reiterating that.
We can move to cooking. All right. So we've talked about water at this point. But one of the biggest things is going to be how do you cook your meal? And the two things I suggested, just because I believe are the easiest. The first one is going to be, and I'll rep this every single day, the fire maple something one.
The off-brand Jeff Boyle you were talking about, right?
Yep. Yeah, the Firestar, that's what it is. The fire maple Firestar 1. It's a knockoff Jet Boil, and it costs about $45. I'd say it holds about twice as much as a normal Jet Boil. And it does the exact same thing. Usually the cup or the canteen or bowl, whatever you want to call it, comes with a little bit more. It does have a lid. I know they actually just started selling stuff to use it as a French press, which I know Jet Boil's been doing for a while, but if you don't want to spend Jet Boil money, you don't have to. But they also have little soup bowls for it. And you can pack the whole thing down into its canister. Like right now I have mine broken down. I have the fuel in there. I have the fire source, which it does have a built-in igniter in there. So you don't have to use your Zippo or Bic. If you guys want a Zippo Task Force Doomer, if you can find one, go for it. There, you can have that, and it's a really good way to, one, cook your food, and two, boil that water. It boils it extremely fast. You do your 20 minutes, but it's right there at your fingertips. And if you want something more that you can kind of get a little gourmet and go a little Gordon Ramsay with it, Walmart sells them. I tagged the Amazon ones as well. It's just a little burner that you attach to propane or butane. You screw it on. It usually has anywhere from 3 to 5 fins that pop out. And then you can go get some sort of camping dishware, right? I tagged I think they were stainless steel. But there's a cook set that has like 2 bowls and 2 pans in it. So you can cook out of all of those, and they break down and lock into each other. You can also just get a skillet. I completely forgot to mention that. A cast iron skillet. Go get one of those, season it up, and then throw it in your pack as well. But 2 very effective and cost-efficient ways to cook. And I'll kind of leave it off on that one for you guys to talk about what you like or you've experienced.
I love the Samwise Gamgee maxing with the cast iron skillet on the back of the ruck. Excellent.
Hey, you could strap it on the outside. Remember that, Pat.
Exactly. And I love cast iron. I cook my breakfast every morning with cast iron. So, or actually, that's a lie. Let's be real. If I'm running late, something goes into the microwave and I'm off. But cast iron is the way to go. All that to say, we talked a little bit about MREs, but since we're also talking about cooking of food, all of your MREs are also going to come with a heater that you add a little bit of water, makes a chemical reaction, and you just prop it up against a rock or something, and after a minute or two, it produces heat for your meal. Now, you can also collect these and repurpose these to heat other food or other things if you're somewhere that is very cold. I have seen people use those as a brief respite from the elements, right?
Yep.
Very convenient, nice to have in your back pocket when you are field stripping your MRE, as I recommended. Want to keep that thing around. It's got a couple of uses. So
with that, before anyone else, when you have that heater too, there's a lot of ways you can fuck it up putting the water. It says it has a fill line. It's everything that in the military is, I'm not joking, it's written to a 5th grade reading level, and people still can't figure it out, which is fine. There is a way you can actually dummy proof your heater where you'll pull it out. It's 4 or 5 heating elements trapped in sleeves. You can take that and fold it over each other, kind of the same way you might fold up a car windshield visor. But you can fold it up, shove it into the bottom of it, and then pour it, like soak it in water, right? Because when you usually do it, you fill the water to a certain amount. That heating pack, as it starts to, the bottom of it starts to boil the water, that vapor goes up and it heats the rest of it, right, as a longer cooking process. But to expedite that, and I've never had a problem with it, again, fold it all into each other, right? It's ribbed for your pleasure. But you can fold it in, shove it in the bottom of there, and then fill it twice as high with water than where the pack sits. And it will boil that water within probably 10 seconds. And then it'll get really fucking hot really fast. And it's a really good way to cook your food. If you're in a rush or something is happening, right? You want to cook it. It'll cook it really fucking quick. And it's a lot more effective than just letting it slow cook. But again, I'll open it up. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yes, science. I'm going to be honest. Most of the meals that I ate whilst in the field while I was in the Army, I did not cook them. Typically, if you are out and about doing a thing, you don't have a whole. Well, I mean, depending on what your mission is, right? You might be sitting in a hide site or on an OP, right, for days at a time, laying low. In which case, yes, you have plenty of time to get your food warmed up. But if time is gosh, words are hard sometimes, right? If time is of the essence, scarf it down. Might be cold. Well, at the end of the day, you're not eating it because it's, you're enjoying an evening out with friends. You're eating it for sustenance. So,
actually, one thing I will say on for MRE heaters specifically, as mentioned before, they're kind of a pain in the ass. Like extreme cold weather too. Those things suck. I actually found out a trick over in Korea with it, like I can't English. Shit. Now I'm having issues. God damn.
I told you, man. Words are hard sometimes.
But no, so like freezing cold water with those heaters, it doesn't mix very well. It was bad enough to the point that we would have to basically fill our mouths with water, let it sit for about a minute, and spit it into the heat.
Yep.
Because
sounds about right.
Freezing cold water won't do shit to activate those heaters. So yeah, for all y'all who are in like north, just so y'all know, put the water in your mouth first, then spit it in. Warm that bitch up.
See, that's like a hyper specific niche piece of information that there's no way an average person would know. That was actually really interesting.
There's no way you would know it unless you'd been there and suffered the the loss of your singular food heating source and had to learn from it. So good stuff.
Yeah. Also, if in the same boat of like shit gets cold, right? Sometimes your food's gonna be fucking frozen. Throw it in a pocket that's close to your groin or your armpits. Those are where your body's going to generate the most amount of heat, so you can throw it in there and heat up that food. And same thing, kind of going back to the water thing, right? if you need to cool yourself down really quick and you have a cold water or cold source water, put it on your crotch, put it in your armpits as well. It'll lower that body temp. But Art, I think you had something for this.
Yeah, and I want to go over like what Runner said. Sometimes you just got to eat food, and that's kind of what I was saying about like if you dehydrate your own meals, or you have what are they fucking called? The mountain what?
Mountain House meals.
The mountain house meals.
Roadhouse.
You can pour water in them ahead of time, and like it's not going to be the same as boiling. It just isn't. I'm sorry to tell you this, but it will, to some degree, soften it and make it edible to some degree. I don't know how long that will take. I have minimal experience of that, but it will to some degree. And I think that also putting it, like you just said, putting it somewhere in your body that's warm would help that process significantly. The next section is fire stuff. And if everyone's good, the stuff that I have about this section goes into that. So is it cool if I just move us into the next section?
Yep, totally fine.
Cool. Okay. Heating food, making fire, similar things. If you like, again, I'm going back to bushcraft, fieldcraft, etc. Learn how to make fire. Learn how to use a ferro rod. It's very important. Ferro rods will work so much longer than you can imagine they will. They're a great piece of kit.
They will outlast you.
Yeah, they will. Especially if you buy one of the big ones. They have big ones and they have small ones. The small ones will last years. The big ones will outlast you by far, for sure. So it's like learn how to use those to make a fire. It's very important. It's cool to have like a jet boil or the off-brand jet boil. That's fantastic for however long that lasts. And like also like we're saying, not everything is like a long-lasting emergency. Some of these things are natural disaster and the power goes out, for like a week. Jet boil is going to kill it. It's going to murder that objective of keeping you fed, right?
Yeah.
But learn how to make a fire. There's a few things. One, learn how to make a Dakota fire holder, or at least look into how it works so you can try it if you need to. It is a way of making a fire that produces less smoke so you don't give away your position to other people. Very important in the kind of stuff we're considering. A secondary thing, it's very easy. Well, it's not easy. There's like a bit of work to it, but it is easy. You can turn a soup can into essentially a little cooking furnace that you just feed with sticks. There's plenty of YouTube videos out on it. It's kind of like an old hobo in like the traditional sense of a hobo, not like the modern sense. Trick that you can learn. And I have done that personally. It produces very little smoke, and that can cook. You can cook another cup of soup if you need to, just a straight like can of soup on top of the can. You can cook that. You can put other things on it. It works like a jet boil, except you're feeding it with natural elements, twigs, leaves, etc., etc. And yeah. So having that, it's also very lightweight. It's very easy to add to a pack. I have one. Like I have a bunch of hiking, camping, etc. stuff in my vehicle all the time. And I have a pre-made can for that purpose in there all the time. So that way, if I'm ever camping, it's very easy to just pick up a couple of the twigs that are on the ground, break them down into smaller 3-inch pieces and add them to that to cook food. It's very easy. It produces very, very minimal smoke. And if you do it right, it gets hot very fast. You can cook very quickly. So there's that. Sorry, I have to read notes. I know no one else has that going on.
I do.
No, I'm just quicker and quieter about it.
Yeah, quicker and quieter.
Damn, he called you a fucking incel.
He called me, dude. I don't know how I feel about that.
No,
and now we're getting.
it's not like that.
Monetized.
Oh shit! Calling me an idiot.
I don't think you're ever get monetization to begin with, but whatever.
Yeah,
Coyote, you were wise to be quiet through that exchange, my guy.
Oh no, I just sat there and I just said nerd. That's all I said.
Dude, I'm not being mean to actual people with problems, dude. I grew up in a different age, all right?
A
Man,
good
now
word
Coyote's
cancel.
catching strays.
While he's muted, I think he's
I think he's
Joking
coughing
or
right now,
unmuting?
actually.
I was
Oh.
choking. I was dying.
Oh,
Oh.
heck.
But yeah, cut me saying retard. Don't put that in there.
I'll bleep it.
You can bleep it
I'll
out.
let their imagination go wild.
Just bleep it for the sake of the video. That is all I had though for fire starting. So
So quickly to go over what I had put down. The first thing I like to recommend, again, because the whole point of this was a 5 to 8 day kind of thing. I like to carry at all times 4 Bics in my ruck and maybe one on my person. Again, it's super cheap. It's like $5-6 for it, probably less. But it's just a way that I have that instant fire at my hands when I need to. Again, this is for a very I need to be out for less than 2 weeks. But having that way to start a fire if I need to, it's right there. It's at my hands. And then the next thing I talked about was having a Zippo. I really like Zippos. Shameless plug here, but Task Force Doomer came out with a really cool Zippo, and I can't wait to get my hands on it whenever that comes in. But I love Zippos. Zippos are super cool, and I think for me, it's just a big thing of like, Zippos have been in so many wars, and it's such a cool piece of American history. So I like having that, being able to start a fire with it. Maybe lighting a cigar, whatever the case is, right? You have that with it. It's really windproof. You can use a Zippo as a hand warmer. And then with Zippo, the other side of it is carrying means to refill it or, having backups for if something happens, right? I'm not saying having a backup Zippo, but carrying extra wick, flint, and cotton. It's inexpensive. I think I tagged something that had a bunch of extra shit for Zippos, like you could probably replace a Zippo 6 times over, and it was like $10. And then same thing Art said was the ferro rod, right? Super good idea. Gets you to do what you need to do. Just learn how to use it, right? Test it in your backyard. Don't go and burn down the nearest orphanage. But understanding on how to use that is going to be extremely important. But what do you guys have for anything else?
I know the last section, I just got done with the whole spiel on packing lighter and less is more. When it comes to mission critical or survival critical equipment, gear, stuff, having backups, having redundancies is always a good idea, right? So when he talks 4 Bic lighters, those are not the ounces that I'm talking about that make up pounds. Everyone is familiar with a Bic lighter. They're small, plastic, compact. You put one on your kit, you put one in your pack, you put one in, you wrap one up with your socks so that it's away from the elements, you have them when you need them. But yeah, fire, it's important. Keeps you alive sometimes. So depending on the circumstances.
Hell yeah, Return to Monk.
Yes, Return to Monk.
Monkey.
Bunga bunga.
River Harambe 2016.
Oh man, too soon.
Be a homie. Be that guy to give your pal who's a smoker a light when he forgets his lighter. So make friends.
Yeah. That really for the boys,
For the boys.
I'm always going to recommend you having this before the next item. So I'd recommend you always having a sleeping pad before you have a sleeping bag. And I'm not saying buy a sleeping pad and only have that. But if you had to buy one or the other right now, I would recommend buying a sleeping pad. They're just comfortable, right? There's a few different ones you can use. They have yoga mat style ones that roll up. You have emergency style ones. Walmart sells them, and then I tagged some in the video as well. But they kind of accordion style fold into each other, and a lot of them will have that emergency blanket built into it, and then just that foam padding on the other side. And then the other one that I recommend as well is one that's inflatable. So going back to the sleep pad itself, it's extremely important not only for comfortability, right? And they're notoriously lightweight, right? Whether you get the yoga or the fold up one, right? It doesn't take a ton of space, but you can get the inflatable ones that break down into the size of a tall boy or a 40. But having that sleeping pad to get you off the ground, because the earth will absolutely absorb that heat, right? You don't want that heat transfer. If I'm just having a sleeping bag that's really cool, and it will keep me warm for a lot of stuff, but there's going to be a point of time where you're really trying to get comfortable, or you're trying to sleep for longer than an hour. You not having that sleeping pad, the ground is just going to absorb all of your heat up, and then it's just going to make you colder and colder, and you're going to hate your life. So, just laying that sleeping pad out, laying down on that, taking a quick nap, whatever it is, right? That's going to be extremely beneficial. I know through my experiences, and I think Coyote and Outrunner can probably attest to this as well, but there's been a lot of times where you don't have the time to break out your sleeping bag, whether you have a patrol coming up, or you're expecting something, and this carries over to the real world as well. But I've 100% just broken out my sleeping pad, throw it on the ground, and then I pass out on it. I'm keeping myself off the ground. And again, this also goes with, what does the weather dictate, right? If it's negative 30 degrees, yeah, I have that sleeping bag out as well. But if it's a 50, 60 degree night, anything above that, you can just break that down. Maybe take if you're wearing some sort of flannel or a combat top or whatever, just throw it over your body, or maybe an extra shirt that you have, throw it over yourself, break yourself up from the wind, and then just lay right down on that sleeping mat. You should be pretty fine. But I recommend buying that before you go to the sleeping bag. And again, I'll open it back up to whatever anyone else has to say about that.
That one, I was actually about to argue on that. Is personally, I take the bag over the mat, but you did bring up the whole point of body heat, the ground absorbing that shit. It is an issue. Like personally, me, it doesn't bother me. I haven't used a sleeping mat in fucking years now. I've always just throw the mat on the ground and called it good. Yes, there's been plenty of nights I'm like, I fucking cold as shit. But that's only because I'm used to it that I choose the bag over the mat. Yeah, I'll just run that. And hell, for covering yourself, can never go wrong with a whoopee. I'm just saying.
Yeah, whoopee is always good.
Never go wrong.
Solid. Whoopie's always a solid piece of kit.
I'll never give that up. Fucking over my dead body.
Gotta say. No, you go, Coyote. I was about to go back into the mats, but by all means, carry on.
Go into it.
All right. So, those inflatable sleeping mats, for reasons that Will already covered, they are awesome because they are compact. You can make them to about the size of a 40, I believe you described. Problem with a lot of those inflatable mats, okay, is that they will get punctures depending on what your environment is. If you're on a forest floor, maybe you'll be fine. Maybe you won't. Maybe you're in a different environment where you really don't have to worry about all that. Maybe it's really stony and not kind of the sharp stony, but kind of the smooth stony, right? Less of a worry. But if there's an environment where you are not sure, or you haven't, if you're tired and it's dark out and you're just trying to get your stuff all set up, it's very easy to inflate something, have that thing pop, and then, oh no, all of a sudden you're out your sleeping mat and it's no longer useful to you. So I would say, if given the choice between your standard roll up, between your inflatable, or between your fold up, that fold up one, I would say that would probably be the best choice just in general. I would say that would be the Outrunner recommendation. But again, mission dictates equipment. And also, that's just my opinion. You get a say as well. And you should choose what you find most comfortable and most convenient. So,
little shooter's preference.
Shooter's preference.
Everything.
There you go with the army wording and references, man.
The buzzwords are fun. The buzzwords are fun. Fuck you.
Art?
Yeah, I want to reiterate, it's been reiterated. I don't think the average person knows this. The ground will steal the heat from your fucking body, dude. I know that we all said that, but it's I don't think people realize that. It steals it. It will rip it away from you and you will die.
You will go hyperthermic.
Yeah, you die. You just die. No one understands. The average person has no comprehension that that's a thing.
Coyote's just built different.
Die. Yeah.
Yeah, for someone who
Um,
has not a lot of meat on their body, Coyote, I'm surprised you do that. You really should be
Yeah,
taking
no,
care of
seriously,
yourself a little better.
I have not used a sleeping mat in years. I have just raw dogged with the bag, and I've been fine. I'm not dead yet.
but
I guess that's
even
what happens when you
the
take ketamine
bag
before you
though,
go to bed.
even the bag is a layer from the ground. You
Yeah.
just don't sleep straight on the ground, no matter what. Like, especially if it's cold where you live, you will die. I don't fully understand why the earth gets just suck the heat away from you till you die, but it does.
So I will say with it, another reason why I'm saying bag over mat, the whole thing with the mat, like yes, there's comfortability to it, but more importantly, freezing because of the ground. Have extra clothing with you. You can use that as insulation. It's not the prettiest, but it will do the job. Even
Yeah, it's actually
will be extra clothing, whatever. Throw that underneath you, inside your bags. Still keep that warm, and you also keep that insulation going.
that's one thing I wanted to bring up because I talk about
That's a good
having
point.
trash bags later on in the video, and it's something we'll talk about later as well. But another reason why you want to have these trash bags is you can, if you don't have that sleep mat, right, or you're trying to go for an extremely lightweight long range pack, you can have some trash bags on you, and if you're in an environment that permits it, which I think everywhere in the United States does, you can do simple shit like taking leaves or branches off your environment and then shoving it in those trash bags, and you can make your own mat off of it. Right, it's trapping that air between the trash bags, and it's giving you that cushion where you're not directly on the ground. But again, kind of like Art likes to talk about, it is primitive, but it does also work very well.
Two things. You don't need the trash bag for that. That is a really good idea because it like solidifies it further. It's additional layering and etc. Um, but to go on that, this is totally irrelevant, but it's like a super niche thing people don't know. If you are in a scenario where it is way colder than you are expecting, you do not have the gear to deal with it. Fill the inside of your jacket with you can use plant life, you can use leaves, you can use like bags, like grocery store bags, trash bags, etc., etc. If you put that in, so your skin has an actual like a layer between your skin and the jacket you're wearing, it'll create a thermal layer between those two things that will keep you warm. It'll keep you from dying. That's like a thing I've learned from like homeless people. Um, it's super weird. You would have to live that experience to have ever heard of that, and you would have had to have watched a YouTube video of someone saying it. But that can keep you alive if you're really cold in between your skin or your shirt layer and your jacket. Stuff that full of shit, and you want it to be something that's kind of airy, like a bag, like a trash bag or a grocery bag or leaf, plant matter, etc., things of that nature. That layer between those of air will keep you warm.
Said
Yeah.
we're gonna trash bags again later, correct?
Yeah, we are.
Cool. I will save what I was gonna say then.
Cool.
Until we get there.
So what Art was just talking about, for any of you that served the EQUIX system or extreme cold weather clothing system for our acronyms out there, it's all based around that theory of being able, well, not theory, the trapping air, right? To have that layer of air, if you have, typically you'd want a base layer, and then you'd have your loose layer over that has the air in between it. That's what he is largely describing. So if you were in the service and perhaps you served somewhere remote and austere, they probably handed you out pamphlets. And I know that this information is all online. I don't want to go super deep into the weeds on that system, but the information is out there. It's relatively simple. And there's a lot of ways to essentially achieve the same goal that system puts out to the soldiers. So good stuff.
Yeah, and with what you're saying too, you mentioned it, loose fitting clothing, right? Don't go out and buy a tight fitting jacket and think that's gonna be enough, right? Well, again, like Outrunner said, have those layers, but even if you don't have the layers, have something that's looser to where, same thing Art said, right? You can stuff it, or it just, you have trapped air in between your body and that clothing, right? The moment you start wearing tighter fitting objects and all this shit you put on your body, you're not really building a resistance between your core temp and the elements around you. And then one thing I did forget to bring up, which I kind of do I have it? No, I don't actually talk about it later. You can use to get out of the cold, you can use J-list, right?
Yes.
Which is
Oh my
essentially
God.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
it's J-list is what the military issues. It's a chemical suit. It's a top and a bottom. They have J-list boots, which are really just wet weather boots. But it's a really thick jacket and pants that is it's supposed to protect you from a chemical environment, something that's bad, but at the same time, that shit does not let air out. And if you're in a cold environment, because I had, as a private, I forgot my cold weather stuff one time. And my squad leader was like, just put on your J-list, you fucking idiot. And I put it on, and that changed my perspective on what I thought was the stupidest piece of equipment we have. Now I don't go anywhere without it. Even if I have my wet stuff and cold weather stuff, I might have to hand that off to, someone that might need it. So I'll always go back to putting on my J-list. It'll keep you warm regardless of what the fuck is going on.
You can buy a woodland, like a woodland model that suit surplus on Coleman's military surplus for $25.
God damn.
I just looked it up. I've never heard of that before, so I looked it up. Yeah, you can buy that for $25.
Also, if it's Gore-Tex waterproof, that doesn't breathe either. So a lot of ways to skin that cat.
Alternatively, if you exercise a lot in a cold environment, downgrade. Do not wear that stuff while sweating a lot.
Yes.
We're doing this. We're doing this
know,
podcast as if we're talking to people who have no knowledge on any of this. That's very important.
All right. Well, in that case, then I will get a little bit into the weeds on this topic. So, layers, right? Your first layer, your
layers.
Like an onion.
Layers. First layer is going to be your base
there's
layer. Okay. Think of like your skin tight Under Armour that one guy at the gym wears, even though he probably shouldn't. What it's going to do is it's going to be moisture wicking. Okay. As you move around and you sweat, you don't want that sweat to be against your skin. Now, this is especially critical in a sub-freeze, below freezing temperatures, right? Below 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 Celsius. If that sweat ends up freezing to you, that could court a cold weather injury. And then you have bigger problems than just it being cold out. Even if it isn't below freezing, though, having sweat fluids against your body, that's gonna sap the warmth, the heat out of your body, right? So not good. Have your base layer. Then you have your second layer on top of that, right? Loose. You want to make sure that there is that layer of air. Your body heat, as you're moving around, it's going to heat up that trapped air, and it's going to be that thermal layer that Art was just telling you about. His whole thing about throwing leaves and trash bags and garbage, that also absolutely works. It keeps a separation between those two layers of clothes, allows the air in, and it allows that system to work. Now, anyone who's been in the Army and been issued their gray, puffy level 7 jacket, we call them the marshmallows, okay? They are absolutely wonderful, but that is not a movement layer. Do not wear your level 7 puffy jacket because it's really cold out while you're on a movement. Okay. What you're going to end up doing is you're going to sweat a whole lot more. And for the first bit, you're going to be thinking to yourself, man, I am the smartest guy that ever was, like why isn't anyone else wearing this wonderful puffy jacket? It's my favorite piece of equipment. And a few miles down the road, you have sweat far more than you should. You are having issues keeping up with everyone else. And oh no, your sweat, it's starting to saturate your layers. This is bad. You have sweat too much. Now the system is no longer working as intended. And now you're putting yourself at risk for becoming a cold cat or getting hypothermia in standard civilian terminology.
What is
So
Cat's common. What does that mean?
cat just
For the viewer.
gosh,
Casualty.
and casualty. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
And a casualty
cold
for
cat.
everyone that's listening, it doesn't have to be dead. It's just you're
out of the
useless and
fight.
Out of the fight.
You're
That
out
was
of
a
the
great
fight,
thing
and
because
yeah,
that is. I feel like that was not common knowledge. I think that people think casualty means dead. So that was
that
was
is
important.
yeah. So again, a lot of this stuff is trying to illustrate to you how to not be a liability. And there's no better way to be a liability in the cold than seeking a little bit too much comfort and just creating a problem where none needed to exist in the first place. So, not saying to not have these, puffy marshmallow jackets that are really warm and cozy for when you're just standing around, smoking and joking, waiting for the next thing. They're great. There's a place for them. You should have them, but make sure that you utilize them properly and that you don't allow those to become your undoing in a bad environment. So, or not a bad environment, say a cold environment.
To go on to that before we move to the next section, in addition to that, if you are in cold weather and you're wearing just like that, those 2 layers, but you are doing extraneous activity and you can feel yourself getting hot and sweating, drop down to a fucking t-shirt, dude. Like that seems super counterproductive. Like that makes no sense. You're like out in the, you're out in the cold. It makes no sense. You just can't be sweating in your clothes. That seems super weird. That is a thing. If you are really going extraneous, like you're digging out like your sleeping place, chopping down firewood, et cetera, things of that nature, drop down to a t-shirt. You'll have to like get your clothes back on eventually. You'll start to like cool down. But yeah, that was it. That's it. I'm glad we went over that. That's not rucking specific, but I think that was a good thing that we covered just now.
Yeah, no,
Heck yeah.
absolutely. If no one else says anything on that, we'll shelter. All right. Same thing like I said before, talked about in the video, blah, blah, blah. I hate hearing my own voice. There's a lot of ways you can make a shelter, and there's a lot of things you can just do to buy a shelter, right? So probably the most convenient one I would say is just buying a tent. I like A-frame tents. They keep a lot of the elements off. It doesn't collect on a certain point or whatever. They're simple. Usually most A-frame tents, at least that I've dealt with and that I've tagged in the previous video, it's usually two trekking poles or a pole that's that style that goes to the front and back, and then you use some, either it's twine or 550 cord, tie it down with stakes. You stake the corners. You're good, right? You're out of the elements. A few other things you can use, and a big one is a tarp or a poncho. I tagged it in the video as well. Again, everything we're talking about for the most part I've tagged in the last video, so you guys can just go there. You don't have to watch the whole thing. Just click the description and browse. But there are tarps and ponchos that are sold that are, multi-purpose, which most ponchos are, but they will come with stakes as well. You'll have to figure out a way to get it off the ground, whether, again, if you want to carry some trekking poles or use sticks or whatever, use your imagination. You can hoist that up and get that overhead shelter, getting the sun from beating on you or rain or whatever the case is. Again, same thing with the tarp. You can use camo netting as well. Camo netting works really well, not in a pissing rain environment. It'll stop some snow, but for heat and trying to trap a good amount of heat at night, if you're in a colder environment, again, works really well. You can just, whatever it is you want to choose, you can choose that, understanding what works for you in your price budget and what you feel is applicable. 9 times out of 10, even in the shittiest environments I've been and the easiest, I always like to have that tent with me. Not only am I stopping myself from rain, wind, snow, but it's also just nice to have to kind of get out of the sun. A lot of the time you're going to be doing movements, you're going to want to do it at night. One being that you're not as easily tracked or spotted, but two, it's going to be cooler. It's going to be more permissive for you. But there are times where you might have to be moving through the day, or maybe you moved all night. You didn't have a chance to catch the last like 3 hours of the sun being down to take a quick nap before you do something. But having means to pop something up and get out of that, kind of camouflaging it up with your environment, and just staying out of eyesight, catching some good rest, that's going to be extremely beneficial again for your long-term survival or even your short-term survival. But again, that doesn't have to just be a tent. It could be a tarp. It can be a poncho. It can be a whoopee, which a whoopee is a poncho liner, which every single person in the military will say it's been their best friend because it's a blanket, it's overhead cover, it's everything you could possibly need it to be. But yeah, a lot of different ways you can have shelter and have it be good for your health, right? Because one of the things that we haven't talked about yet, is again just staying out of the sun. Because while you might be perfectly hydrated and you might be well rested and all this, a sunburn is a real fucking thing. It is crippling depending on how bad it is, even if it's just on your neck, right? But having those ways to stay out of the sun when it's not necessary, it's going to be good. But I'll open it up again for whatever you guys have to add to it.
So, little piece that I actually just recently added into my camping kit, always changing, always finding little things to add or subtract from it. A Mylar thermal blanket. Looks like a really big sheet of tin foil. Okay. These things are really great for holding in the heat when it's cold at night. It basically just reflects the heat that radiates off your body back at you. Now,
They're also called survival blankets if you want to look them up online.
perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. Survival blanket. So, a con of this potentially, if you are really trying to keep a low profile, like I described it, it's kind of a big shiny piece of tin foil. Okay. So, you might want to have that as a layer underneath something like a whoopee, something like a tarp, or perhaps something like a sleep system. If you were to shine light on it, it is like a mirror. So now, conversely, it could also be used to signal if you happen to be out and about and are people are out looking for you, search and rescue, that kind of thing. If you don't have a VS17 panel, or I suppose in standard terms, I believe that's visual. Ooh, I don't know that acronym.
Visual signal.
Visual signal. Thank you. It's basically a plastic marking device that on one side is pink and the other side is orange. Very bright, very visible if you're out in the forest and you put it up somewhere for people to find you. This Mylar blanket or emergency blanket will do largely the same thing because it is shiny. So use it to stay warm and use it to signal people.
For that one, they actually do make survival blankets that one side is reflective, and you put towards your body, and the other side will be. I've seen shiny ones, and I've also more recently I've actually seen matte colored ones, whether it's green, brown, gray, black, that aren't reflective as well. So another option for people to consider if they're listening.
All right, pony up for the non-poverty option where you have some camouflage with it.
The fucking cam option. It will
Get
also
a fucking RV.
Side note, it will also allegedly mask your thermal, like from thermal optics.
Well, that's what it does.
I've seen a lot of video.
No, it does.
Shit is,
It absolutely does, because I mean it's reflecting your own body's radiation that would be picked up by said thermals. So
yeah, random side fact for the audience to think about.
If you're listening and invading force or someone's attacking us with thermals, don't go ahead and use that as a cloak. All right, don't go running around thinking you're running around in this Mylar survival blanket. It's going to make you invisible. All right, just
wait. It's not an invisibility cloak. I can't run around like fucking Harry Potter.
It's Coyote in the chamber.
You probably could. You'd probably be fine with that.
How big is your Mylar? How big is your survival blanket, dude? That's the question we gotta ask. You sew four of those bad boys together, dude. I think you can go anywhere.
Oh, they're also from. I know Coyote's brought it up about being in Korea. One of the other squad leaders and I, really cold fucking night. And we dug a ridiculous fighting position. It was probably 10 feet by 5 feet by 6 feet, and it was super fucking cold, snowing. So we got in this thing. We put it over ourselves. They don't, and I was so tired and cold I didn't think about it. They don't trap fucking don't put any sort of fire whatsoever in there. We had a lighter that we were using to try to like see if it could reflect the heat. It didn't, and then I stupidly used my my jet boil and then burned a hole in the top of it. So just for everyone out there, let my fuck up be your word of advice. Don't try to trap heat with fire under that thing.
Also, cuddle your homies. That that
Body
is
heat. Body
yeah,
heat
that's
saves lives.
yeah. We didn't say that, but because we're talking a lot about how nature will murder you in this podcast about rucking. Yeah, if you're with
Survival.
if you're with other people, dude, yeah, rucking it's sustainment gear, so survival makes sense. Body heat, like cuddle up to someone, dude. You might be like, no, dude, I ain't gonna like. Me and my homie are trying to get out of the city, but it's
You
cold,
fucking
bro.
cold
But
enough, dude.
yeah, do that. That's another thing. You can 100% get cold enough to be like, I'm gonna spoon this guy right now, dude.
I've done
Those
it.
are
I
real
have no
times.
shame in that. It fucking
Yeah.
works. Like,
It works.
but
It's
Coyote,
awkward,
sorry, we
but
all cut
it'll
you
save
off.
your life. Oh no, I was just saying, it ain't games for survival. That's all I was saying.
Damn
God
straight.
bless.
I'm pretty sure Bear Grylls said that, but yeah.
That's Bear Grylls though. He's something
Bear Grylls
else.
is a faker, dude.
Fucking
Yeah,
Brit.
he claims to drink water from fucking his own piss and like
What the
animal
hell is a
shit,
kilometer?
which is nasty as fuck.
They bring him McDonald's and it doesn't matter. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
tracking. Total
Yeah, let's
tangent.
not. Yeah, I don't want
Let's
to get
avoid
sued
that.
by Discovery.
You should listen to I am blanking on his name. Les Stroud. Watch Les Stroud videos. That is a great source of
Can you spell
survival
that?
information. I can if I look it up. I know that Les is just like I think it's just LES. Unless I'm LESSTROUD. Les Stroud. He's Survivor Man. Most people know the name of that channel. All of his content, he owns all of it. Random plug for something I care about. That's also helpful to the community. Every episode of Survivor Man is available on YouTube for free. He owns the rights to all of it, and he has made it all publicly available on YouTube, including episodes that were not on television, episodes with friends after the show ended, etc. I say etc. a lot. So sorry. I'm gonna try and stop doing that. That shit's annoying me now. But there's so much survival information available. He is he is a serious survival guy, not like the guy we just talked about. Fuck that guy. Goddamn McDonald's in the jungle and shit.
Outdoor Boys too. Outdoor Boys.
Outdoor Boys is a great one. His stuff is very practical because he's doing like weird stuff, but in the past it was mostly in the United States. Very practical stuff for him. So yeah, both of those are great sources for survival information, stuff like this. We were talking. What were we talking about? I feel like I had something else.
We were on shelter.
Okay, cool. I do have stuff to say, and then I will give it up to Coyote. You can make your own steaks. You don't need to carry. This is in partnership with the thing I want to talk about. With if you can't get a tent, buy a tarp. You can compact. It's in the video. He mentioned a tarp, but seriously, you can compact tarps so easily. A lot of the necessary part of something like that, of structures to protect you from the elements, a big portion of that is just breaking you from the wind, keeping the wind off of you. Insects are a big thing depending on where you live in certain parts of the country, and then in that case, a tarp's not going to save you or anything. But most of it is wind chill and like the actual environments, rain, snow, etc. God, why do I keep doing that? I've never said etc. This much in my life. But
etc.
yeah, I'm like schizo posting about etceteras now. But yeah, buy a tarp. They're easily compacted. You can roll them up super small. You can buy a massive one for a car, and you could roll it up enough to fit on your ruck in a similar size as like a self-inflating ground pad. So it's like or smaller. You can buy those, and then you don't have to carry tent stakes because you can make your own. You just make a J. You find a branch that splits in two. You break it at the split above the split. You keep one side longer, one side shorter, and that creates a perfect J. and that's great for a bunch of other stuff, but I don't need to talk about that. But paracord, or what is the cord that you talk about in the video?
Twine. I do bring that up in a
Yeah.
little bit, but yeah.
Okay.
CMI twine.
Yeah, CMI twine, paracord in combination with a tarp, and you can go really big and compact them very small. You can go a long way, and that's great for people who are on like a budget. They can't afford like a nice fancy ass tent. Honestly, a lot of the cheaper end tents are they're not worth it, I would say. So yeah, and then I did want to go back around. If you're really desperate and you're dying and it's raining, trash bags, rip that trash bag open and make a covering out of it. I've seen a couple of people who do survival videos, serious ones, where they carry like 3 heavy duty construction trash bags, like folded up into each other. And with that they can make lean-tos and stuff like that will at least keep rain off of them and prevent wind from hitting them. And I wanted to say that because Coyote had something he wanted to say about trash bags. So
actually, yeah, I was going into it with the whole waterproofing trash bag. Cool. Throw it over your sleeping bag. Turn it into a poncho. Those things are damn great for anything keeping water off you. But on the whole thing of just coverings, whatnot, keeping elements off you, little more low key. Not as extravagant, I guess. It doesn't stick out as much, but fucking bivvies. Keep rain off you, keep fucking wind from totally annihilating you.
That is a good one.
Surplus shops, they got them. There's a really good one that Cabela sells for like, God, $80, I think. Those things work wonders.
And here we go. What is a bivvy? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I was about to fuck you.
It's an outer shell to a sleeping system or bag, and its whole purpose is to be waterproof. Now, if you're in the military, I'm sorry, you've never experienced a waterproof one, but you can buy your own. Easy way to check to see if it's going to be waterproof, and I mentioned this later on, and we'll talk about this later. With same thing with wet weather bags, but turn it inside out, and then get in it. Sounds weird, right? But get in it, and then try to look for a source of light. If you can see pinholes coming through it, right, tiny little holes coming through it, it's not waterproof at that point. It's water resistant, right? That rain's going to fall off, but those holes will allow that water or whatever to get into your bivvy and into your sleeping bag.
Like I said, there's a really good one Cabela's got. I actually just recently learned about this one from Buddy. I'm big into the like 3-day pack type shit. And yeah, nice little. It comes in Cryptech, which I think, but whatever. Comes in a nice little tiny flat bag that you fit the whole thing into. It's got a frame to keep it off your face. A little bit of a mesh paneling that you could pull the Velcro back on so you can actually breathe. But again, it's on the nicer side of those. You can always, it won't be waterproof as mentioned before, but it's something nonetheless.
What is it? What is the one that you're talking about called? I think you like glitched out when you said what it was actually called, or
No, I didn't say the actual name of it. I'm pulling it up now because I forget.
Okay.
It's a contour bivvy, I think is what it is. SJK contour.
Well, for bivvies, I'd say shop around. I mean, the Cabela's one is really nice, but again, $80. That's an investment for a lot lot you can make yeah, exactly.
I can afford trash bags.
Yeah, I'll be the resident. I'll LARP as the resident poor person. Spoiler: it's not actually a LARP; it's a lifestyle. But that aside, your local milsurp, go out, check on them, see what they have, see if they have a serviceable one. Again, like Will mentioned, it is not likely to be waterproof because they're not waterproof when we got them new. So your mileage may vary. However, it will stop the wind, and it will be at least water resistant. A lot of these things, but look around, check eBay. Never pay full price for something. Knee jerk reaction to, oh, I absolutely need it. Better spend a whole lot of money. Be frugal, I would say. So, but all information that you guys just brought up about it, it's great. I got nothing more to add to it.
Yeah, never pay full price for something if you don't have to, and don't pay your taxes.
No, it's
All right,
not. Don't say that.
no, it's not. It's
He's
not legal
joking.
advice.
He's joking.
I'll bleep that out. I'll bleep all this out.
They'll come after you. Don't say that.
Anything else on shelter that anyone wants to add?
You can definitely get away with just a tarp. Like if you don't want to go out, and again, back to the poor talk. Don't go out, buy a big fancy tent, and then haul all that stuff around when, you can take a tarp, fold it up real nice, throw up some 550 cord between two trees, create an A-frame essentially, and be all set. Now, again, mission's going to dictate the gear. Weather is going to dictate what you want to bring along as well. So maybe you do need an enclosed tent to keep everything out, but maybe you don't. So your mileage may vary.
One thing I did forget to bring up was the Life Fighter tents that is issued. Online, you're looking at like fucking $400 to $500 for a new one. Used probably $200. Again, surplus stores usually sell it pretty cheap. Or cheaper. You can go on OfferUp or Marketplace as well. Even if you're not close to a base, you can set your location around it and like see if you can pay for the shipping. But I do like those too. If I don't have an A-frame, and it's nice being issued it sometimes because you don't have to spend your own money. But Life Fighter tents, it's a 2-piece system. So the first piece is going to be an outer cover. It's like a tarp. It has an entrance on both sides. It's a diagonal zip, and on that tarp you hook it onto the main tent. Now the main tent is going to be, I'd say, this is what my wife says is 6 inches, so probably 4 inches of waterproofing around the bottom of it, so it can handle raining for the most part. But again, like Outrunner brought up earlier in the video, depending on the environment you're in, right? If you're in soft sand or, maybe some softer dirt, you might not have to worry about it. But, sharp rocks, twigs, anything really, it can puncture anything. But it is nice. It's waterproof. And it also, you don't just have that waterproofing base and that tarp. You also have a built-in bug netting as well all around it. So you can just pop up that piece if you want to, where it's hot, it's not going to rain, but you want to keep the bugs off of you. That absolutely works. And that inner also has 2 entrances on both sides. But when you combine that with the tarp, you can stake down the 4 corners of it. And then it has 2 outer corners running the length of or 2 hooks running the length of it. And you can either put that right next to where your entrances are, or you can actually expand that out probably a good, I think it's like 2 to 3 feet, and shove all of your gear under there. So everything is protected from the environment. But yeah, just one thing I want to bring up was those Life Fighter tents.
Sleeping bags. Yeah, one that's a little lower rated than where you live if you need to pop half your body out or whatever. The Coleman one that's mentioned in the video, I bought on the recommendation of Will, and is actually fantastic. It's super affordable as well. It's also in relatively like camoed colors. It's perfect.
And I talk about it in the video as well. I think extra items to consider. Waterproof spray. You can use it for tents, and you can use it for sleeping bags. Art and I were talking about it. Make sure you don't use a ton because it can stop airflow. If you really seal that bitch up, like you're hurting yourself. So have a way to kind of open it. But you can also spray that stuff down, and I think it's good for like 2 to 5 uses in environment where it's completely waterproof. After that, it'll start to dwindle. But you can pair that with it. Just take it in your backyard, spray it down or whatever. Let it what is that? Let it cure, and then spray it again, and you should be fine.
Amazon's easy for people, so I'll say. They also just have, like how I talked about the scrim where you just cinch it on your bag. They also have those that are rain cover packs. It's like a hiking thing. You can look those up. They're just rated by how many milliliters your backpack is. You look up whatever backpack you will have. You look it up on the website, see what you need, and buy it. And it will cover it. So if you're rucking in rain, it's just not sucking up water.
That Marting top.
It's not as good.
I talked about.
Yeah. It's not as good. A cover is not as good as like fully putting it in another pack that like protects it. But it'll help more.
But that Marting top ruck I talked about has a built-in deployable waterproofing or some sort of cover. At the bottom of it, there's a zipper. You can pull it out, and it has that elastic material, so it goes over the part that's not touching your back, to waterproof that outside, and then it kind of comes down towards where it could touch your neck, and stops that water from coming in.
It's going to get wet.
Yeah,
Another thing,
everything's going to get
you're
wet.
not going to keep things from being wet. Ziploc, the stuff that cannot get wet by any means, you're not going to. You buy all that stuff, but if you're in like an absolute downpour, it's going to get wet.
The next thing is going to be digging tools. I only mentioned 2 digging tools because there are a shitload of options you can go with, but the 2 I recommend, right? One is a mini shovel, right? It's a spade, right? The spade is the end of a shovel. And then about anywhere from a 1 to a 2 foot handle. Again, it's a fucking shovel. The one I linked has a serrated edge and then a more blunt edge. But it has its own carrying case. You can strap it onto the outside of your shit, whatever. And I recommend that first over the next item. And I'll talk about the downfalls as to why. But the next item is an e-tool, right? Which is a military entrenching tool, which fancy word for shovel. But e-tools are really cool. You can buy them pretty cheap. I and everyone else I know has always run into the problem with an e-tool where if you're in that fielded environment or you're having to do some sort of survival and you're not cleaning that thing more than you're cleaning yourself, you're probably going to fuck yourself in the long run. The locking ring on it will get gunked up. You'll try to force it to lock, and then you lost that lock at that point. And then the hinges that you can break the e-tool down into, those also get gunked up. So then you at that point just have a spade with essentially a rubber handle that's not locking up. It's just flopping all over the place. That's why I like the mini shovel. You don't have to worry about that, and the one I have is lasting me way longer than any e-tool I had.
I got something for that. So as either an alternate or maybe in addition to your e-tool, depending on where you are, an ice axe or a climbing pick in a pinch can also be used as something that you can either use to climb, break ice, climb glaciers, rocks, whatever, or you could also use to dig. Now, obviously, it's not going to be as good as a shovel, but in a pinch, you can break the earth and make it work. One caveat to that, how you pack that in your pack or your ruck, you want to be careful, because if you're one to do a rucksack flop or you are careless, it is possible to impale yourself on these things in the event you are in the wrong place at the wrong time, have the wrong angle, or if you flop on it, that's all your body weight on what is a pretty sharp point. So be careful with your tools. Maybe have a cover on the head of the ice axe or climbing pick, whichever. And mission dictates equipment. So
carry those tools externally if you can.
Oh, 100%. 100%. It's going to be an external thing.
Learn how to make your own cordage from natural fibers. It's not as complicated as you think it is. Look into it. Look into primitive skills. I'm going to keep hammering this down. Because I think that the concerns we have are long-term, long-time problems, not short, quick problems that it's camping trip or hiking trip or whatever. So learn how to make your own cordage. It's not that complicated. You just have to learn how to do it. It's fairly simple. You can do it in most places in the U.S.
Artist, what are some resources that you've been relying on lately as far as that neck of the woods of preparation and this bushcraft? Whether they be websites, YouTubes, books, what do you got for us?
So we went the outdoor boys is a good one. Les Stroud is a good one. I'm struggling, but I can't for the life of me remember this. There's an Instagram guy who goes over stuff that's like primitive skills. Awesome. YouTube is your biggest friend, though. I don't even think it needs to be a specific content creator to shout out. YouTube is really your biggest friend for that. There's so many people that are extremely passionate about that subject. If you look up like how to make natural cordage, there will be like hundreds of videos of different people showing how to do it from different places in the earth with different plants and stuff like that. One thing I will say, watching a video is not enough. There are videos that you can, you can watch and you can like be like, oh, okay, cool, I got it, Um, that doesn't translate when it turns stuff like that. You need to like physically go do it. It's a good means of touching grass for everyone, all of you fucking computer people and shit. It's a good means of touching grass, getting into nature, giving yourself an excuse to go outside. You can't do all of it. You can't start fires wherever you want and stuff like that. But yeah, practice the skills. You buy a ferro rod and you think you're going to make a fire because you've watched 60 videos of people making fires with a ferro rod, and you get out there and it is a much different story. Um, Practicing those skills is very important physically in real life. So yeah, watch some videos, look up some people on Instagram, look up some books. There's so many like camping, fieldcraft, bushcraft books that you can buy. But the biggest part is to physically go out there and test it. It's cool to think that you could do a bow drill, like like if you've heard anyone who's ever heard of a bow drill, it's cool to think you could do that. Doing it in real life is different. And also, I the last thing, because I don't have any other notes that involve primitive survival shit, I think the feeling of success you get from doing stuff like that it's not explainable. There is something really primitive in your brain that like turns on like a light switch. Like, I highly recommend getting into some of those crafts. It is 100% superhuman. It's more human than sitting looking at a computer. Your brain recognizes it and feels it, and I would recommend getting into it.
The next one is medical, and I think this is going to be a broader subject for us. I think more than anything, I suggested, and I'm a firm believer in this because we talk about water, and if you're needing to even do that in the first place, you could run into problems. So the first part of medical, carrying anti-diarrheals, right? You don't want to drink some fucked up water and then shit yourself to death. It happens, right? If I drink messed up
Guardia,
water,
dude.
even food poisoning, right? If I'm shitting liquid out of my ass, right, I'm just getting dehydrated. So having something that's going to stop that while I'm still going to be fucked up, it's at least not death by feces. So I think that's a very important thing for you to have. And I tagged a few generic medications for that in the last video. Another thing, ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, all those things are really good. Have them with you. Just stopping, you think, oh, I'm going to go out there, I'll be fine. And then you get a fucking headache because you're dehydrated. And you're like, man, I really wish I had something to kind of like take the edge off of this. That's there for you. Having Band-Aids. I put a party pack of Band-Aids. It was probably 280, all different shapes and sizes. Not everything is a bullet wound, and not everything is, you getting impaled by a claymore sword. So minor cuts and scratches, maybe slight burns or a rash or road rash, whatever it is. You can use that to patch yourself up and not get a further infection. One thing I did not cover is moleskin, right? In the event that we're talking about 5 to 8 days worth of having to move or being on your feet. If you haven't done it before and your feet aren't calloused, you're going to run into some problems. So having moleskin to kind of mitigate that, when you start to feel a blister coming along, or you're just getting rubbed raw, slapping that on there, it's a good little patch up. And then tourniquets and gauze. I think those are very self-explanatory. Ones, they're both stopping a bleed, and then gauze can be used for a million different things, from holding things together to tying up a makeshift splint, whatever it is, right? Having that with you is going to be important. And I think one thing that does fall into medical, which I think we talked about in the last podcast, having that source of nicotine, again, it'll help you. Art brings it up. It helps him with his rucking. If you're also addicted to nicotine, right? If you have to hit your vape or a Zyn or a cigarette, whatever, having that means of nicotine will help you not go through any sort of withdrawal. And then the other thing is caffeine tablets. And I'm saying that because don't load your long range pack with 34 white monsters like most of the military does and just call it a day. Having those caffeine tablets where you can pop it in your water, just chew it and eat it yourself. I can attest to this. Again, I'll keep bringing this up. I went through really bad caffeine withdrawals on my first deployment because we went and did something and I didn't have caffeine for a few days, and that shit I did not believe in it, and now I 100% do. That's why I've cut caffeine pretty much out of my my diet. But if you rely on those things, having that is good because one, you won't go through withdrawals, but two, you can use caffeine to stay up. If you need to, you're like, I can't go to sleep. I need to keep moving. I need to be more alert and awake. Maybe having some of that nicotine and that caffeine that'll keep you going. And then with nicotine and caffeine, they're both natural stimulants. Stimulants. And what the fuck is the other word I'm thinking of? Is it stimulants?
Yeah.
Sure.
They get you to shit.
Oh, diuretic? I don't know.
Diuretic. There's another word.
Yeah,
I think
diuretic would get you to do it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's diuretic.
but it does the same thing. It gets your body moving. It's loosening you up. It does thin your blood out a little bit, but that also helps with your digestive tract. So if you do decide to eat 2 MREs those first days and you're like, man, I really got to poop, that caffeine tablet and a Zyn or a cigarette might help you cleanse the demons out of your body. But what do you guys have for medical? I feel like this is a really good one to discuss.
Well, I mean, having an IFAC, right? Individual first aid kit, typically is just going to have the basic stuff that you might need for patching a bullet wound or, applying a tourniquet. And your tourniquet is your tourniquet. If you have additional tourniquets, good on you. You should. But your number one tourniquet is for you in the event that you take a round and you need to stop yourself from bleeding out because you nick an artery or something like that. You're on the clock. You need your tourniquet. And if you handed it off to your buddy 5 minutes ago who took a round, I mean, good on you for helping save your buddy. But now you're in a position where you cannot save yourself. So redundancy, have a few. And make sure that your tourniquet remains your tourniquet.
Bare minimum. I believe it's 90% of deaths due to traumatic injuries are all hemorrhaging. So bare minimum, you're going to want tourniquet, gauze, and then like an ace bandage or a chest seal, something like that. Bare minimum. Something to stop the bleed.
My only contribution is liquid bandage. Look that up.
That's right.
Liquid bandage or super glue. That seems wild. Super glue is it's like antibacterial, I think, because of the acidity. And that's like something you probably shouldn't do in your normal day-to-day life. But liquid bandage is more like the healthier alternative to super glue. Those things can treat a wide volume of cuts, like from really small ones to kind of bigger ones. Super glue can manage stuff that like maybe you need staples for, and you're in a place where you ain't getting sutures, you ain't getting staples or sutures. So it's like if your option is like that or dying, like, yeah, that would be my recommendation is adding a bottle of super glue. Also, super glue does so much stuff. It's just helpful to have anyways. That's more of a last resort. Liquid bandage is kind of fulfills that role in a better way. Yeah, that's it. That's what I have to add. I think medical's so broad, and I'm sure we'll talk about actual medical in its own video someday. So
yeah, we absolutely that is on the docket. You can go on Amazon and buy this, and I'll put a link in here as well. Put it in the last video. You can buy, and it'll sound sketchy, but understanding how to use it would be your number one priority, and then 2, actually acquiring it. But you can go on Amazon and buy medical staple guns that come preloaded with, I think it's either 20 to 40 staples. So if you do have that problem and you need a quick patch, you can use that. Again, understanding what it's used for, how it's used, that's your priority. You don't just want to go in there and you have a bullet hole, you get hit with a slug or some 12-7 round or some niche like 6mm arc, and then just start stapling away, hoping to God you can fix yourself. But having that could also be something you could add to your kit. It's very lightweight, and I think it's $8 to $14. I could be mistaken, but yeah, that could be something you guys could add to your long range pack as well.
Learn to suture. To go along with that, you don't have to like be a fucking doctor. You don't have to know, like, there's like so many ways of like suturing. It's ridiculous. You don't have to learn all of them. People were really using string and bone for a long time to like suture up injuries. So just learn how to do that. If you're like by yourself or you're with a small community, you have no access to like medical, and you take an injury that's not life threatening, but it's a big wound, you need to close it. Just watch some videos on how to do suturing, so you at least have like the bare minimum idea at least of like what you can do to like close that wound.
Ooh,
Oh, you got something out, Ron?
yeah, and it just popped into my mind. I'll keep it quick. Disinfectant stuff. Don't let a small cut turn into a big infection. Really, that's about it. Yeah, there's little things that you can do to prevent something small from turning into something bigger. And you could also get into hygiene, have some baby wipes as well, because that will also affect your health and your readiness, essentially. So, yeah, just be mindful of those things. Just because you're out and about doesn't mean that, you shouldn't still be taking care of yourself. So, God bless.
God bless. All right, the next thing we're going to cover, and to any of our here, hopefully at this point I've edited out a lot of this because we're at the 3-hour mark now. We don't have a lot. We don't have a lot left to cover, but next is going to be land navigation. That's just, if you have to move, you've got to fucking move, and you don't want to have to rely on having your phone as your only means of getting around. So the first thing I recommend is getting a Garmin, which is a GPS device that goes on your wrist. It's a little watch. You can put in coordinates. You can either set it to latitude, longitude. You can use MGRS, which is the military's version of essentially latitude and longitude. It's more precise, but it also uses GLONASS, which is a certain satellite system, which is supposed to be fail-safe, and you can use it for the end of time. How true that is, I don't know. But they're relatively affordable. I think the Fortrex 401 is like $120, and I think the 801 is actually cheaper than that now, it's a lot nicer. So you will have to carry batteries for that or a charger depending on the model you get. But the other things too, how Outrunner brought it up, having a map, right?
And laminating it.
Your map.
Yep.
And I plugged it in the video too. I put the links in it. You can buy a laminator at $25 and lamination sleeves for $15. You can laminate everything you want. It doesn't have to just be maps. It may be quick medical reference guides or dope cards, whatever it is. You have that, and it's going to keep it waterproof. And the next thing I'll let Art talk about, because he's very passionate about this one. You know what I'm talking about, Art?
Yeah, learn how to figure out directions and time out. Yeah, you're right. This is it. I was just kidding. I'm going back to bushcrafting, baby.
Those words, man.
I realized that I said I was done talking about bushcrafting, and I lied. Learn how to tell time and direction through natural means. Humans have been doing it forever. It's a skill you can learn. It's a skill that you can use all the time because you physically exist in the world. That's it. Just learn it. I will say, yeah, those are important. I will say, a side note, one thing that is the most important to learn about the time and direction stuff that people don't think about is learning the finger rule for sunsets. Each finger is a 15-minute section. So if you hold your hand up, under the sun, every finger until the horizon is 15 minutes of light you have left. And that can really make or break a lot of decisions in a survival scenario of like, can I get away with trying to do this before it's absolutely dark outside? And I use that in my real personal life. I know I have a phone, but I don't know. Why would I pick my phone up and look at when sundown is when I just put my hand up and like do a quick check? So
don't look directly at the sun, kids.
Stare right at the sun. Stare right at it.
You know my dad.
Bring your fucking retina, you nerd.
I take it back. Listen to me. I am God. Stare at the sun.
Jesus Christ.
So land navigation is something that I know I definitely can get way into the weeds on, but I will spare you all that, and I will instead refer you to Field Manual 3-25.26. All right, so that's going to be your Army's land navigation manual, map reading, all that. I believe in your first episode, a little ways back, that you posted, there is a share drive with a treasure trove of field manuals in there, and you'll be able to find that in there. And it breaks down into very, very simple terminology, all the ins and outs of map reading, how to properly use a compass. You'll learn about dead reckoning. You'll learn about draws and peaks and valleys and rivers and what colors on military maps at the very least mean. These are great resources. These are fantastic resources, and they are offered for free probably elsewhere. But again, shameless plug to this podcast. Go back to the previous episode, take a look at that, have that just downloaded on your computer or perhaps on a flash drive.
I actually made it easier for everyone too. So it's actually on the YouTube in the bio, as well as my Instagram, civilian, I think _principles or dot principles. And then in the Discord, if you'd like to join that as well, I have it pinned everywhere. It's a Google Drive. We call it the key. But yeah, it has everything in there from land navigation to counterinsurgency and counterinsurgency tactics. So you can go through there and read whatever the fuck you want. But land navigation is in there. I give you guys a warning if you've never read military doctrine before. It's not a fucking page turner. So skim through things. You can do word searches in the PDF, so you can find things easier. There is a table of contents, but yeah, that is in there. I would definitely give it a once over. And then same thing. Everyone's talked about at this point. YouTube is your best friend. It's just a lot of people that are pushing stuff out. It's a book that you're looking at, kind of like a movie, but informational based. So go ahead and search what you can. It's in that drive as well. But yeah, absolutely. Thanks for plugging that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One thing I was gonna say: go and explore, learn your area, especially from work to home or whatever other places you frequent. Like learn your everything around your normal route. Try new routes, because you never know. You're gonna have to take detours. Shit's going down. Worst case scenario. If you can maneuver and navigate through urban or more like rural areas, and whatnot, by memory. Sick. Do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean not to carry a map though. Always have a map with you just in case. But yeah, go out, explore, know the area.
It's a topic probably for a separate podcast and perhaps with a separate expert, but doing your own personal area study on where you live and just the surrounding region, probably a good thing to have if you are afraid of, or rather, perhaps not afraid of, but preparing for any form of social unrest, supply chain breakdown, potential, who knows what, sleeper cells, cartels, anyone coming in from the southern border that's been wide open. Know your area.
Troopers.
Yeah, exactly. Wolverine.
I'm just saying Red Dawn. Yeah, there we go.
The next topic is going to be emergency comms. So I bring up having a Baofeng because you can program emergency channels in there. You can also semi-encrypt them, just depending on who is doing what. I think it's Mojave Repeater talks about how to do it. And I also want to say for free, he has the Gorilla's Handbook to the Baofeng radio in a PDF version as well. It's really just like maximizing your effectiveness with a Baofeng. Those are really good. Those are about $25. You get a battery, charger, antenna, and then the radio itself. You can buy bigger batteries. Some of you might have seen in the thumbnail or in the background of my videos. On the left side of my desk, I have what looks to be a military grade radio. It looks like what is it, a PRC 152 or just a 152? But it's actually a Baofeng in a way larger shell. It's got a potted internal structure on it. And it is waterproof, and then it has a massive fucking battery on it. You can do a whole bunch. That battery, with you having a bigger battery, for the emergency aspect of it, right? Maybe you don't have someone you need programming these things for emergency signals to where you're picking up, even if it's weather reports, or able to put it on scanner mode and listen to what people are saying, understanding what's going on in your local area. That's crucial, communication, and then having that knowledge. And the other thing with that too, I like to carry redundancies for a lot of things. So I also keep a cheap, the Walmart On walkie-talkies. They're like $5. They take 3 AA's and they last a good amount. They have like 21 channels, and then each channel has like 9 different sub channels. So you can just put it on scan, and then whatever comes up, you can listen to it.
To be honest with you, that's probably one area where I feel super weak in, as far as which is ironic, oddly, is just civilian radios, ham radios in particular. That's something that I know in the future I'm going to be spending a lot of time brushing up on and making sure that I have a plan to communicate with loved ones, other people that I'm collaborating with. Fill in the blank, right? Communication's important.
Make sure you bring extra socks.
Yeah, I was gonna hit that in the closing marks for whenever he got around to like anything else we want to hit. I would say extra socks, have good socks, particularly for rucking. So your Darn Toughs, your Fox Rivers, don't just grab a, random no name pack off the shelf at Target. Your socks take care of your feet, and your feet take care of you. So take care of your feet, make sure that they're happy, make sure that you're not getting infections, and if you have rub spots or blisters, moleskin, wear the correct footwear for the environment, right? If you have hiking boots or your army boots or your Merrells or your fill in the blanks, make sure they fit properly. Make sure that, if you're in a particularly rainy environment and you're a big fan of Gore-Tex, well, use your Gore-Tex boots as needed. I know some people don't like those because I know they keep water in as well as they keep water out. So, pick and choose based off of what you think you're going to need, and make sure that they are broken in and you're comfortable wearing them before you absolutely need to wear them and your performance depends upon them. So, yeah.
Tools to cut with.
Fight.
We had a
Hockey
discussion
season's over.
about
I need a fight.
24 hours ago from here.
We have a disagreement.
Yeah, they were arguing the merits of the katana versus the longsword, I'm sure.
I was actually talking
That's
about
it.
sharpened nunchucks. I don't know what the fuck Art though. He likes weird shit. But no, so cutting tools, right? I brought up two that I like because it's simple. You can break it down pretty easy, and for the most part, you can use it for most environments. But there is, so you have a handsaw, and what I mean by handsaw, not one that you're cutting lumber in your backyard, but it looks like a very large fold-out knife. Usually they're anywhere from 8 to 12 inches. And it's a little saw you can pop out and you can cut whatever with. Again, how I talked about earlier, that nasty fighting position I made with another guy. We use these. We were cutting down pretty big logs with them, and we were making really good shelters. There wasn't a situation where I ever had to I don't think this is going to get through it. It did everything I needed to. And yeah, so you can either use that handsaw, and then the other thing I recommend through Corporals Corner stuff, because you can get the handsaw cheap, but he has a good one. It's really sturdy. I think it's hammer forged. I think it's a hammer forged steel saw blade, whatever it is. But he has that, but it also pairs with a knife as sheath. So again, you can use that to cut stuff. You're obviously not cutting through great oak, but you can get through whatever.
Yeah, get a thick, full tang fixed blade knife for any sort of survival outdoor utility. That is like the number one thing. You can do everything with that, essentially. You might not be able to do as well as other tools, but you can do everything with it. It's only been real recently in history that people don't carry knives at all. So a multi-tool with an exterior knife is really helpful. We talked about it in the last podcast, so I'll skip through it, but I wanted to bring this up and I forgot. An external knife, so you could use it as a pocket knife, is really helpful. And the thing that we have a bit of an argument about, which is, I'm not saying what his things are bad. They are good. The saws and whatnot are good. A hand axe is what my thing is. I am a firm believer in hand axes, especially ones that have hammers on the opposing side of the blade. There is so much you can do with a hand axe. It's a survival staple. If you can get your hands on it, there's just so much you can do. You can break down wood. If you take care of your axe and keep it sharp, you can do anything you need to do with a knife with it. The hammer portion allows you. You got a hammer. You got a fucking hammer. You can like nail stakes into the ground for like your tarp tent because you can't afford a real tent. You can hammer the real stakes in from your real tent. Yeah, that's it. That's Will thinks they're dumb. I think that they're actually really useful. I've had one for several years. I've taken on it on a lot of camping trips, a lot of like stuff where we're like out in the middle of nowhere. I've used it every single time without fail, and it's been super helpful every single time. It just fulfills so many roles. So that's it.
They want Team Hatchet for this one.
Team Hatchet, baby.
Hey, the mission dictates the tools, right? So if you feel as though that hatchet's going to be the real needle mover, then by all means, pack it up.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the end of the podcast, but I'm out of notes. So also super important, a whetstone to sharpen all of these blades that you need for all these different outdoor activities.
Maintenance, yeah. Maintain your blades. Have your oils as well. So
Maintain all your equipment.
Last thing you need is your stuff to rust up on you, and all of a sudden you have this 5-pound piece of crap that you mismanaged. So one more thing that you mentioned that is, well, rather didn't mention, that would go in with that, baby powder. You want to have that stuff for your feet. You want to have that for your other extremities. Stay dry, stay clean. So
cut your hair. Your long ass hair is a hindrance on your body. It will make you die.
I did cut it.
Yeah, you hippie.
I cut it a while ago.
Not you. Wait, I'm not saying to you specifically. Jesus.
Oh.
No,
Yeah.
Just as advice.
Totally said my name.
No, I feel like a jerk.
No.
I thought he was attacking Coyote, and I just jumped in with him.
Will said Coyote artist, and I started talking.
I thought you said Coyote. You're talking shit. I was like, dog.
No. I'm saying for the audience, man. But yeah, man, like if you're running for your life, like a group of people are chasing you right for your life, and your hair's fucking in your eyes, you can't see shit. Like, there's a reason the Army, Marines, etc., make you cut your hair.
Speaking from experience, yeah, it sucks keeping hair that long. Even if it's well maintained, if it's long, it's gonna get in your way eventually.
Harder to maintain. That's another thing. Yeah. Harder to keep clean. Also, I'm sorry, Coyote. I feel so bad. I thought you were just joking when you were like, I cut my hair. I was like, I'm so sorry.
I apologize for nothing, Coyote.
That's fine. I do not care. We need more bickering in here. It's too serious.
Well, this entire segment reeks of onset male pattern baldness and individuals that cannot grow out and maintain their flow.
Damn, that suck. Well, say,
no,
like
shorter is most certainly better, I would say, and in a less is more as far as things to worry about if you are in a non-permissive environment or dealing with social unrest or other stuff. So don't allow your hair to be a liability to yourself, I guess. I don't know.
Spray paint your hair like they did in fucking Civil War, dude.
Better idea. I'm just gonna grow out my hair, dye it all like bright blue, and just vibe with it.
Well, unfortunately, that's the end of the podcast. It seems like we had some editing errors and footage getting corrupted. But what you guys missed was just pretty much everyone saying goodbye, closing out their last bits. But I want to say I appreciate all of you if you made it this far and listening. Continue to build a community, continue to get strong, and just look out for each other. Spread as much knowledge as you have. And then, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all in this together, and it seems like the world is coming to a really shitty time. So look out for each other as best you can and do what you want. Don't let anyone tell you can't do something or train or whatever it is. Don't let them do it. Thank you for listening to the Civilian Principles Podcast. I'm Will. Have a great day.